Chapter 488. Qin Wentian's countenance turned heavy. In the depths of the ancient pathway of darkness, more and more demonified monsters appeared. Their eyes all gleamed with red light as the bloodlines in their bodies trembled uncontrollably. It was as though they were gradually being demonified as a tyrannical aura radiated from them. Qin Wentian's fiend transformation art involuntarily erupted forth. His mandate of demons gushed forth as a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth from him. Those from the Blood Cloud sect and Ecliptic sect all distanced themselves from him. Su Feng pulled Ji Shui along as they retreated, yet Ji Shui stared at Qin Wentian as she asked, "Brother Qin?" "Nothing, I've cultivated the mandate of demons." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. "We have to leave this place." Everyone nodded their heads. At this moment, they knew that they had been ambushed. That demonic spirit had already gained sentience and was extremely intelligent. "Go!" Qin Wentian roared. At this moment, those demonic beasts howled as they lunged towards them. This place was too narrow. It was difficult for them to unleash their full potential. Xie Yu of the Ecliptic sect erupted forth with his astral nova. 9 arms actually appeared on his body as he brandished a gigantic flaming bow, shooting out arrows that instantly killed the demonic beasts beside him who hadn't fully demonized yet. Tossing the bow away, he dashed towards the entrance of the cavern as his 9 arms punched out with an earth-shattering might. Ji Shui also moved. Her immortal binding chains shot out in all 8 directions, binding all the demonic beasts that appeared in the cavern. Su Feng was in front of her, rushing towards the entrance of the cavern. His long spear was like a beam of light, unstoppable. That demonic beast howled, wanting to evade the spear, yet Su Feng's palms trembled as his long spear actually split apart, transforming into 3 short spears that blocked the path of the demonic beast, piercing into its body and causing it to be flung through the air. However, that demonic beast didn't die, it crawled back up and blocked the path of retreat. These demonic beasts are unkillable, they don't fear pain at all. The voice of Lung Tu from the Blood Cloud sect trembled. And at this moment, the demonic beast that hadn't moved since the beginning finally moved. Every step it took caused the hearts of the crowd to pound even more violently. A tyrannical aura gushed forth frenziedly, as though it was on the verge of losing control. "It's over." Everyone had looks of despair on their faces. Although they couldn't kill those demonic beasts in a short period of time, they could still contend against them. However, this demonic beast king made them feel powerless. The blood-red eyes swept across the crowd, causing them to almost descend into madness. Their veins popped out and their blood vessels bulged. A suffocating pressure of death enveloped everyone. "Xie Yu, Lung Tu, your men will hold back those demonized monsters. We'll deal with this demon spirit. Otherwise, we'll all die here." Su Feng swept a glance at the situation inside. Xie Yu and Lung Tu nodded slightly. This was the only thing they could do now. Xie Yu, Lung Tu, Su Feng, Ji Shui, as well as Qin Wentian, were facing the powerful demon spirit. Beside Qin Wentian, Little Rascal exuded the aura of a king as it stared at the demonic spirit before shifting its gaze onto Qin Wentian. Its eyes flickered with the light of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird as it roared at Qin Wentian. "Purgatory, does it need this demonic spirit?" Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to Little Rascal. Little Rascal let out a low roar as it nodded its head. The baleful aura in its eyes grew even denser as the light of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird flickered in and out of existence, as though it was filled with anticipation. Qin Wentian stroked the face of the Purgatory Vermilion Bird as he nodded his head with a heavy expression on his face. "This is what I promised you, I'll definitely do it." After speaking, he turned his gaze onto the demonic spirit as a fearsome battle intent gushed forth from him. As the crowd neared the demonic spirit, the tyrannical aura radiating from them was completely stimulated. Ji Shui's bloodline power erupted forth as her long hair fluttered in the wind. Her eyes shone like the stars in the night sky as the immortal binding rope transformed into countless strands that shot out. The demonic spirit let out a low roar as the entire cavern trembled. Everyone felt as though their blood was about to burst out from their bodies. "BZZ!" Su Feng released his astral nova as his silhouette flickered with the speed of lightning. The astral nova in his hands shone with a resplendent silver light as it transformed into a 9-meter-long spear. With a thrust of his spear, a vortex of astral light appeared as he pierced towards the eyes of the demonic spirit. The demonic spirit inclined its head slightly, using its face to defend while its body struggled madly. The immortal binding rope felt as though it was on the verge of exploding. That long spear spun rapidly in the air, yet there was no sign of blood. Each of Xieyu's 9 arms was holding onto a resplendent golden arrow. His body followed the arrow, and 9 palm imprints slammed down at the same time. Heaven and earth seemed to be on the verge of collapse, slamming onto the head of the demonic beast. A spiked blood-colored glove appeared in the hands of Lung Tu from the Blood Cloud sect. He pressed it against the forehead of the demonic spirit as boundless blood energy gushed into the body of the demonic spirit. Roar! The demonic spirit inclined its head as it howled in rage. A demonic blood-colored light enveloped the entire space, enveloping everyone as the blood in their veins throbbed madly. This demonic spirit didn't attack, it only wanted to turn the humans into demons instead. Qin Wenyan walked out step by step. Every step he took contained a terrifying demonic will. At this moment, a terrifying will of the monarch of demons gushed forth from his body, as though the blood in his body was being stimulated by the demonic spirit. Little Rascal was the same as Qin Wenyan. It was as though they were about to be completely awakened by the demonic spirit. Qin Wenyan's silhouette flickered as he instantly descended. His killing intent towered up into the sky as the gigantic black sword in his hands instantly slammed into the head of the demonic spirit. Waves of terrifying energy gushed into the demonic spirit, yet the eyes of the demonic spirit were still as red as ever, as cold as ever. It was as though the attacks of everyone here were useless against it. Little Rascal leapt onto the body of the demonic spirit and bit down on the neck of the demonic spirit, frenziedly devouring the energy within the demonic spirit. Roar! At this instant, the demonic spirit was completely enraged. Ji Shue's immortal binding rope couldn't endure it any longer and she hurriedly retracted it. If she persisted any longer, her astral nova would shatter. Boom! The demonic spirit stomped on the ground, as a baleful demonic chi swept over everything. The eyes of Lung Tu and the others started to gleam with a demonic light, as though the blood in their bodies was gradually losing control as they were flung through the air. Qin Wenyan and the demonic spirit stared at each other. He felt a towering demonic chi gushing into his body, wanting to control him. However, at this moment, the blood in Qin Wenyan's body started to churn frenziedly, faintly condensing into the form of a terrifying primordial demonic spirit that loomed over the world, staring disdainfully at the invading energy. Bang! A terrifying gaze swept over, the body of the demonic spirit trembled violently, as though it was on the verge of collapse. Pooh! Qin Wenyan was the first to be unable to endure the terrifying energy in his body. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body was flung through the air, the blood in his body trembling violently. The demonic spirit seemed to have been stimulated. It abruptly leaped into the air, landing heavily on the ground as a thunderous boom echoed out. Little Rascal, who was on its back, was still biting down on the demonic spirit with all its might. 3 consecutive howls of rage rang out. The demonic spirit was completely enraged. The demonic spirits under its control began to slaughter even more frenziedly, and 3 experts from the other side had already died. However, Su Feng, Xieyou and the rest were in even more despair. They discovered that all their efforts were futile. In front of this demonic spirit, they couldn't even withstand a single strike. As that immense pressure bore down on them, Ji Shue paled. She murmured in a low voice, "Am I going to die here? Even if I die, I cannot become a monster." "I'm unwilling," Lung Tu coldly spat out, filled with an intense reluctance. How could he die here? Su Feng and Xieyu's countenances were extremely unsightly to behold. They had no way to contend against this demonic spirit. However, Qin Wenyan could sense that at this moment, the demonic spirit had locked onto him. Although this demonic spirit had sentience, it still retained the instincts of a demonic spirit. It could sense a terrifying demonic energy emanating from Qin Wenyin, and it wanted to subdue it. Qin Wenyin glanced at Su Feng and the rest as he spoke. Since we are allies, I will lure this demonic spirit away. There are 2 paths leading to this demonic spirit. I will take one path while you guys take the other path. Maybe you might be able to find the treasure it is guarding. If you guys manage to find it, I want to share. How about it? The countenances of Xie Yu and the rest froze as they stared at Qin Wenyin. This person was truly audacious to think of treasures at this moment. Fine, if you can lure this demonic spirit away, we will definitely share a share with you. Xie Yu immediately expressed. No problem. Su Feng and Leng Tu nodded. Qin Wenyin stared at the demonic spirit as he dashed out. Stellar transposition instantly appeared behind the demonic spirit as he sprinted towards one of the paths leading to the demonic spirit. As expected, the demonic spirit instantly turned, disregarding everything else as it chased after Qin Wenyin. This caused Xie Yu and the rest to exchange glances, feeling as though they had just found a new lease of life in a hopeless situation. This fellow. Ji Shui stared at the back view of the demonic spirit. Xie Yu turned and stared at the battlefield as he spoke. We need to deal with these demonic spirits first before sending someone to inform the experts of our sect. Leng Tu nodded in agreement. The situation here had already exceeded their expectations. Qin Wenyin madly sprinted forward, but the speed of the demonic spirit was even faster. Luckily, he could execute stellar transposition and widen the distance between them. Little Rascal was still latched onto the demonic spirit's back, devouring its flesh and blood. Its ferocious nature seemed to have been completely stimulated. Finally, Qin Wenyin arrived at the end of this space. This place was actually a cave with a blood pool. The demonic blood in the pool was boiling, and the demonic qi contained within caused Qin Wenyan's heart to tremble. This demonic spirit was birthed from this place? Qin Wenyan turned, only to see the demonic spirit howling in rage. A sharp blade appeared on its back, piercing into Little Rascal's body, causing Little Rascal to howl in pain as it lunged towards Qin Wenyan. At this moment, the demonic spirit was truly enraged. A pair of wings appeared on its back, and incomparably sharp fangs appeared in its mouth. Its eyes flickered with a blood-red light as it stared fixedly at Qin Wenyan. With every step it took, Qin Wenyan almost coughed out blood. There was simply no way for him to block. Bzz. The demonic spirit lunged over. This time around, it was filled with killing intent. Its sharp claws directly tore through everything. The scarlet demon halberd appeared in Qin Wenyan's hands as he abruptly slashed out. A dreamlike scene appeared in this space, yet the demonic spirit didn't seem to be affected at all. It was a demonic spirit. How could it be affected by nightmares? Bang! An incomparably powerful force blasted Qin Wenyan into the blood pool. At the same time, the demonic spirit grabbed out with its palms, directly pinning Little Rascal to the ground. Its eyes flickered with a terrifying killing intent as it stared at Little Rascal. Too powerful, so powerful that it was impossible to defend against it. The demonic beast bloodline in Qin Wenyan's body seethed. He who had fallen into the blood pool actually began to frenziedly devour the energy within. That energy was boundless and boundless. It was the purest form of demonic energy. Release it! Qin Wenyan roared. He slowly walked about in the blood pool as a demonic glow revolved around him. He stared at the demonic spirit. If he wanted to defeat it, he could only use the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation or the immortal vanquishing swordplay. If he wanted to use the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation, he would still need to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. If not, he would only be able to roam the heavens and earth as a demon. This wasn't something he wanted. But if he directly used the immortal vanquishing swordplay, he wouldn't have enough energy left in his body to ignite. He would die. Blood pool. At this moment, Qin Wenyan felt the thirst of the demonic beast bloodline in his body. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying light as abruptly, a fearsome sword might gushed forth from him. It was as though his entire body was burning, but at the instant of that, The blood in his body frenziedly devoured the energy within the blood pool. Back then, he borrowed the power of the demonic beast's divinity to ignite his own essence, chi, and spirit to activate the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Now, the energy within the blood pool seemed to be able to replace it. Chapter 489. The demonic beast stared at Qin Wenyin as it howled in rage. Its sharp claws slammed into Little Rascal's body, causing blood to flow from Little Rascal's body. "Release me!" Qin Wenyan's silhouette flickered as he instantly appeared in front of the demonic beast, slashing out with his sword. Bang! The sharp sword slashed onto the demonic beast's body, yet it couldn't move it at all. It stared at Qin Wenyin and abruptly lunged forward, wanting to devour everything in its path. Qin Wenyan's left arm swung out as an incomparably gigantic heavenly hammer blasted out, directly slamming into the mouth of the demonic beast, sealing its mouth shut. Qin Wenyan's body sank into the blood pool once more. The thirst within him grew stronger and stronger as a fearsome demonic light flickered in his eyes. It was unknown how terrifying the demonic energy contained within the blood pool was. It even surpassed the demonic energy he borrowed from the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art back then. Although his body was thirsty, it was impossible for him to devour the blood pool. He could only activate the immortal vanquishing swordplay and devour the demonic energy within his body. "I'll risk it all." The sword intent radiating from Qin Wenyin grew increasingly terrifying. The entire space was filled with destructive sword might as the blood pool transformed into a fearsome vortex, frenziedly absorbing the demonic energy into Qin Wenyan's body. His body was burning with a frenzied intensity. "I can endure it." Qin Wenyin naturally wouldn't court death. If this method wasn't possible, he would rather be heavily injured and stop using it. But at this moment, he could clearly sense that the demonic energy within the blood pool was sufficient to support him. Little Rascal turned its gaze over to Qin Wenyin. The countenance of the vermilion bird flashed as it stared at Qin Wenyin. Its gaze was filled with emotions and a sense of attachment. Back then, it was merely a purgatory ancient luck that was born because of Qin Wenyin. In its world, there was only Qin Wenyin. Roar! The scarlet-eyed demonic beast felt threatened. It roared madly and rushed out once again. Astral light erupted forth, stellar transposition. Qin Wenyin retreated once more, yet he was still within the pool of blood. The entire pool transformed into beams of blood-colored light that were absorbed into his body. The entire space seemed to be filled with a blood-colored sword might. Qin Wenyan's body was trembling slightly. He was ready to bear the pain that the sword would bring. When the crimson-eyed demonic beast lunged forward again, Qin Wenyan's finger pressed downwards. Instantly, the body of the crimson-eyed demonic beast froze in place. The boundless blood-colored sword might bore down on it, as though the entire space was about to be torn apart. The scarlet-eyed demonic beast trembled violently as it raised its head to the sky and roared. The blood pool spun madly as it rapidly dried up. The essence of the blood pool was all burned into the sword. Qin Wenyan's finger descended once more, tapping the body of the scarlet-eyed demonic beast. A sword might capable of destroying everything ravaged the demonic beast's body. Extinguish! Qin Wenyan's body was completely covered in blood-colored light. That sword strike had completely landed. With a roar of despair, the scarlet-eyed demonic beast lay on the ground. At this moment, the blood pool had already dried up, there was nothing left. Over there, a skeleton could be seen. The light radiating from the skeleton gradually dimmed. Pooh! Qin Wenyin sat on the ground as he panted heavily. He took out the blood shadow Ganoderma with great difficulty and swallowed both of them. However, a smile could be seen on his face. He had succeeded. This blood pool had supported the sword strike, but after that, his body felt exceptionally weak. His internal organs were all convulsing violently. However, the terrifying ancient demon bloodline in his body had not been extinguished. It flowed through his body, as if the remaining power of the blood pool demon had been completely absorbed. Wherever the bloodline flowed through, he felt his body recovering rapidly. Rumble! The earth trembled, as though the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with sharpness. Little Rascal came to his side and gently stroked his face. Qin Wenin then spoke to Little Rascal, "Quickly devour that demonic spirit." With a low roar, Little Rascal turned and dashed towards the demonic spirit that Qin Wenian had intentionally not torn apart. At the same time, the entire space around them actually began to collapse. Outside of the mine, the heavens and earth were similarly collapsing. Many experts in the surroundings inclined their heads and stared at this space, only to see that the entire space was collapsing. What's going on? In the camp of the king's manor, Shang-Chi stared at the sky. Earlier, it was as though a beam of blood-colored light had sliced through this space, causing the entire space to collapse. Sure too, could it be that the space within this mountain was really just a mountain? And now, the mountain is collapsing? The gazes of everyone were filled with shock as they stared at this space. Even the guards outside the mountain were shocked when they saw the mountain collapsing. They discovered that when the mountain was collapsing, it seemed to be collapsing layer by layer, incomparably orderly. Not long after, the entire space had completely collapsed and shattered. The mountain was no longer a mountain, and the water was no longer a river. The vast space could be seen with a single glance. It was really only the width of a mountain. The experts from the various camps could already see each other's existences. What's that? At this moment, the gazes of everyone turned in a certain direction only to see that there was a gigantic ancient tree as tall as a mountain. Its roots were intertwined with each other as it towered up into the sky. Xie Yu of the Ecliptic sect and Leng Tu of the Blood Cloud sect are over there. At this moment, the silhouettes of the experts flickered, transforming into bolts of lightning as they sped towards the gigantic tree. An instant later, the experts of the various powers all gathered here. Inclining their heads, they stared at the gigantic ancient tree as their hearts pounded violently. The ancient tree exuded a terrifying mandate energy, and on its branches, there were many fruits that shone faintly with the power of constellations. "Oh my God, that's a celestial constellation tree!" Someone exclaimed in shock. They actually discovered an ancient celestial constellation tree here. Celestial constellation tree. The bodies of many trembled as expressions of madness flashed in their eyes. An ancient celestial constellation tree actually appeared here? Return to the king's manor immediately. Only to see Shang-Chi turning his gaze onto a person behind him. That person's countenance turned ashen, as though he was filled with reluctance. But when he saw the coldness in Shang-Chi's eyes, he still nodded his head and started to retreat. They naturally understood what the appearance of an ancient celestial constellation tree signified. An ancient celestial constellation tree can produce celestial constellation fruits. If there are any celestial constellation fruits I need here, it would be sufficient for me to comprehend my mandate faster and step into the perfection boundary of the second level. In the direction of the Yin clan, Yin Ting inclined his head as a crazed light flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that there would actually be a celestial constellation tree here. Not only that, it was an extremely mature celestial constellation tree with so many celestial constellation fruits on it. Any single celestial constellation fruit was priceless, especially to those who wanted to break through to the mandate boundary. Only to see at this moment, Jian Jingtian from the Heaven Shocking Sword sect started to sweep the area with his sword intent, frenziedly slashing apart the rocks on the ground, as though he was searching for something. This scene caused the eyes of the others to flash with sharpness. They all knew the origin of the celestial constellation tree from the ancient records, and when they thought of this dimension, their hearts pounded violently. They didn't dare to imagine what it was. This place was actually the burial ground of a legendary character, a character above the celestial phenomenon realm. It was rumored that characters at that level had already condensed an immortal foundation in their bodies and had the strength of an immortal. They could slay celestial phenomenon ascendants with a single glance and destroy a group of ascendants with a single punch. No matter how many ascendants there were, they would all die in front of such a legendary character. With just a light pat, it would be like squashing an ant to death. Experts at this level were also the hegemons of this boundless region. The sect leader of the royal sacred sect was precisely such a legendary character. Hence, no one could shake the position of the royal sacred sect in the boundless region they ruled. If one day, such a character also appeared in the Grand Shang Empire, the status of the Grand Shang Empire would surely be incomparable. It would undergo a qualitative change, becoming lofty and lofty, surpassing the limits of the Grand Shang Empire. If one day there was a country that gave birth to such a legendary character, the status of that country would instantly surpass the Grand Shang Empire, and even surpass it. One could very well imagine the waves of shock in their hearts when they saw the celestial constellation tree and realized that there was such a supreme existence buried here. Not only Jian Jingtian, the others were also frenziedly sweeping the ground. According to the ancient records, the birth of the celestial constellation tree would definitely be nurtured by the blood of that legendary character. Although the celestial constellation tree was incomparably precious, it was here, it wouldn't be able to run away. They wanted to see if there were any treasures left behind by that legendary character. And at this moment, a hand abruptly stretched out from the rubble. The instant this hand appeared, everyone halted their movements as their hearts pounded violently. Bang! An explosive sound rang out as the ground split apart. After which, a silhouette appeared, and when the eyes of everyone clearly saw this silhouette, a look of bewilderment flashed in their eyes. Their mouths twitched involuntarily, the nervousness in their hearts earlier seemed to have been played by someone. "It's you!" Shang Yu had a strange expression on her face when she saw Qin Wenin. "You actually didn't die." Yin Cheng's countenance turned sinister. Qin Wenin was actually still alive and had even managed to crawl out from the rubble. Not only him, beside him, a demonic beast also appeared and stood beside Qin Wenin, staring at the crowd. Qin Wenin drew in a deep breath. He didn't expect that he would recover so quickly after using the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Maybe it had something to do with the blood pool he swallowed. At this moment, he inclined his head in bewilderment, only to see the ancient tree above him. A strange light involuntarily flashed in his eyes. Could it be that this ancient tree was nourished by the energy of the astral crystal mine? What caused it to grow so strong? Not only that, the aura of the fruits on this ancient tree was even more terrifying compared to the great earth fruit. What made Qin Wenin even more depressed was that this entire space seemed to have collapsed. Everyone was gathered here, and at this moment, numerous gazes landed on him, many of them with unfriendly expressions. "Brother Qin." Ji Shui's melodious voice drifted over. In such a tense atmosphere, it sounded somewhat different. Qin Wenin lightly nodded his head to Ji Shui as he asked, "What tree is this?" "The celestial constellation tree, born from the bloodline of a celestial phenomenon ascendant. This isn't an astral crystal mine either, it's most likely that the mountain of Yuan meteor stones was sucked dry by the celestial constellation tree, and that crimson-eyed blood demon was also born from the blood of that celestial phenomenon ascendant," Ji Shui explained to Qin Wenin. "The celestial constellation fruit of this celestial constellation tree is also known as the martial will fruit. Born from the bloodline of a celestial phenomenon ascendant." Qin Wentian's heart pounded. That pool of blood. He suddenly understood why the pool of blood could withstand his immortal vanquishing swordplay, and why it could recover so quickly. Just when Qin Wenin was still in shock, Xiaoyu turned his gaze onto him as he laughed. "Brother Qin, the blood demon that chased after you was born from the bloodline of a legendary ascendant. Now that it has disappeared, it must have been chased by you, right? Since you chased into its lair, did you discover any treasures left behind by that supreme ascendant?" As the sound of Xiaoyu's voice faded, Ji Shui's beautiful eyes froze as her countenance turned extremely unsightly. This Xiaoyu actually changed his attitude so quickly. The gazes of everyone were focused on Qin Wenin at the same instant, as waves of terrifying cold intent gushed forth. Qin Wenin glanced at Xiaoyu, only to see that Xiaoyu's countenance was as calm as ever, with a faint smile on his face. It was as though he had already forgotten how his life was saved. Chapter 490. Qin Wenin thought back to the skeleton in his bloodline. However, other than that skeleton, there was nothing else in the surroundings. For such a legendary character to die here, he must have experienced a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering battle. For the defeated, how could the treasures on his body be preserved? Not all experts would leave behind an inheritance before they died. Maybe there were only skeletons left behind. As for the birth of the celestial constellation tree, it was purely because the bloodline of that expert was too powerful. After countless years, the celestial constellation fruits were born. Xie naturally knew how tyrannical the demonic beast was. He should already be surprised that Qin Wenyan could survive. But now that he said such a sentence, it undoubtedly caused the gazes of the crowd to shift to Qin Wenyan. This way, the number of gazes on the celestial constellation tree would lessen. Brother Qin was pursued by that demonic beast. How could he have obtained anything in such a short period of time? Xie, aren't your words a little too venomous? Ji Shui stared at Xie, her countenance filled with rage. Earlier, if it wasn't for Qin Wenyan drawing the demonic beast away, it would be hard for them to escape death. Now that Qin Wenyan crawled out from the rubble, regardless of how he managed to escape, it was clear that he wasn't in a good state. He must have experienced an intense battle. According to Xieyu's promise, Qin Wenyan would receive a portion of the treasures they discovered. But now, leaving aside the matter of splitting the treasures, this Xieyu actually directly placed Qin Wenyan in such a dire situation. I'm just casually asking. In any case, there were only two paths earlier. The path we took just so happened to lead us to this ancient tree. If Brother Qin took the path, it wouldn't be surprising if he had some good fortune. Xieyu laughed. Shut up. Su Feng coldly snorted, angrily rebuking Xieyu. His long spear gleamed with sharpness as he pointed it at Xieyu. I'm ashamed to be associated with you. Brother Su Feng, don't be so impudent just because I'm polite to you. You're merely an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain. It's not difficult for me to obtain this identity. Xieyu's eyes flickered with a cold light. His words were the truth. Given Xieyu's strength, he too had the chance to become an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountains. It was just that the ecliptic sect Xieyu was from was a power within the Shen King city, and it belonged to the Grand Shang Empire. The relationship between the Grand Shang Empire and the Qinghua Mountain wasn't that friendly. In the Grand Shang Empire, the Qinghua Mountain was clearly stronger. Not only that, other than these two major powers, there were many other powers they could choose from. Hence, many of the geniuses weren't in a hurry to make their choice. There's no need to fight anymore. Once we kill this man, we'll know whether or not he has obtained the inheritance of the utmost powerful being. A cold voice rang out. The person who spoke was none other than Yin Ting from the Yin clan. He already knew that Qin Wenyan was the one who had humiliated Yin Cheng before. He had already given the order to kill Qin Wenyan, and it was an accident that Qin Wenyan didn't die. But now that Qin Wenyan appeared here, there was no other choice but to die. Ji Shui's silhouette flickered as she appeared beside Qin Wenyan. She stared at the crowd. Brother Qin and I are allies. If someone dares to act against him, I naturally won't stand idly by the side. The long spear in Su Feng's hand spun slightly as he stared in the direction of Yin Ting. This slight movement of his indicated his attitude, causing everyone to be taken aback. I owe my life to him. A cold light flickered in Su Feng's eyes. Regardless of the reason why Qin Wenyan lured the crimson-eyed demonic beast away, Qin Wenyan had still saved his life. I won't help either side. Lung Tu stated his attitude. Wanting him to help Qin Wenyan, he couldn't do it. But wanting him to kick Qin Wenyan when he was down, he wasn't so despicable. He heard that Qin Wenyan had offended Shang Yu, Jin Zhan and Yin Cheng. It would be hard for Qin Wenyan to escape death. Yin Ting glanced at Xieyu when he heard Lung Tu's words. Xieyu's attention didn't seem to be entirely focused on Qin Wenyan. This caused Yin Ting to have a rough guess in his heart. Bizizi. A raging wind gusted as the silence was broken. Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan soared up into the skies, aiming for the constellation fruits in the center of the celestial constellation tree. Mph, Shang-Chi coldly snorted. His silhouette flickered as he transformed into a beam of light, shooting towards the constellation fruits. Upon seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't be bothered with Qin Wendian any longer. They all dashed towards the celestial constellation tree, especially when they saw Xie Yu and Lung Tu doing the same thing. They were even more certain that Qin Wendian didn't obtain anything. If not, how could these people be so calm as to spare him? Regardless of whether or not there were any treasures, they could temporarily put it aside. Right now, the most important thing was to fight for the constellation fruits. The constellation fruits on the celestial constellation tree were of different colors. The one on the lowest layer was an earthen yellow in color, similar to the great earth fruits. When the crowd neared it, they all halted as a terrifying pressure bore down on them, causing them to have no way to advance any further. Naturally, there were also those who directly moved towards the other layers of constellation fruits. However, they all met with different kinds of obstructions. For example, when they neared the blood-colored constellation fruits, they instantly felt their blood flowing uncontrollably, as though their bodies were about to explode. In fact, if they advanced any further, their bodies would bleed profusely. It was an extremely miserable sight. The celestial constellation tree was birthed from the bloodline of a legendary expert. The constellation fruits it bore contained a terrifying will of mandates. How could it be so easy to obtain them? This was also the reason why they didn't act earlier. If they could pluck the constellation fruits in an instant, these people wouldn't even need to face off against each other. They would have directly acted. Let's go. Su Feng glanced at Ji Shui. Wielding his long spear, he directly flew towards the celestial constellation tree. Ji Shui glanced at Qin Wendian. Brother Qin, it's best if you leave first. Don't participate in the contest for the constellation fruits. After speaking, she also soared up into the air. From her point of view, if Qin Wendian continued to stay here, it would be extremely dangerous. He might even be killed. The experts from the 9 transcendent powers all acted at the same time. For a period of time, the entire celestial constellation tree was filled with silhouettes. Qin Wendian's perception gushed out, sensing the will of mandates contained within the constellation fruits. The earthen yellow constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of great earth. The blood-red constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of blood. Other than that, there were also constellation fruits that contained demonic energy, spatial energy, and metal energy. The constellation fruits on the highest level were all crimson in color. When he released his perception, Qin Wendian's heart pounded wildly, just like when he faced the crimson-eyed demonic beast. The crimson-eyed demonic beast was born from the power of its bloodline. Hence, its body contained many extraordinary powers, it was just that it couldn't unleash them. The celestial constellation tree was like a mountain spiraling in the air. It was separated into 6 levels, and each level bore different fruits. However, the fruits on each level weren't so easy to pluck. At this moment, the expert who wanted to pluck the constellation fruits on the highest level actually fell headfirst from the tree. Evidently, he had already died. This caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Even plucking the fruits could result in death. Qin Wendian rubbed Little Rascal's head as he spoke in a low voice. Help me pluck those fruits with the will of mandate of demons. Little Rascal's silhouette flickered as it soared through the air, directly dashing towards the constellation fruits containing the will of demons. The blood in Qin Wendian's body seethed as a fearsome demonic qi gushed forth from him. His entire body was enveloped by a fearsome blood qi as the aura he exuded surged up at an insane rate. Inclining his head, Qin Wendian stared at the celestial constellation tree as his blood qi churned wildly, breaking through the limits of his cultivation base. Qin Wendian's silhouette soared up into the air, directly landing on a tree branch on the first level as he walked towards one of the fruits. Yin Ting, Xie Yu, Jin Yan, the 3 heavens chosen were all on this level. Other than them, there were also several powerful heavenly dipper sovereigns present. Qin Wendian walked up. Scram! Yin Ting blasted out with his palms, as a gigantic palm imprint of lightning imbued with a heavy pressure akin to a gigantic piece of land sweeping downwards, suppressing Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian lifted his palms as demonic qi churned wildly. His divine energy howled as he punched out, directly shattering the thunderous palm imprint. Stepping out, Qin Wenyin used his tyrannical strength to forcibly endure the pressure from the constellation fruits. He was one step closer to the constellation fruits, and he only needed 5 more steps before he could obtain them. However, Yin Ting, Xie Yu and Jin Yan were only 4 steps away, even closer than him. Beside Qin Wenyin, there were a few other experts who were only 5 steps away. When they saw Qin Wenyin walking over, their eyes all flickered with a cold light. "Since you helped me once, Scram." Xie Yu's gaze swept over as he stared at Qin Wenyin. 9 arms manifested from his body, resembling a monster. Jin Yan was a heavens chosen from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan. Before this, because Jin Zhan was defeated by Qin Wenyin, he wanted to teach Qin Wenyin a lesson. Yet now, Qin Wenyin actually dared to come here to vie for the constellation fruits? His finger flickered with terrifying golden flames as he released his astral nova, causing the golden flames to transform into streams of light that flowed towards the tip of his finger. Jin Yan's finger pressed down in the direction of Qin Wenyin as the golden flames shot towards Qin Wenyin. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as a gigantic palm imprint slammed towards the golden flames. However, he discovered that the golden flames seemed to have transformed into illusory flames. The palm imprint directly penetrated through them as though they didn't exist, continuing to pierce towards Qin Wenyin. "Puchi!" The golden flames directly entered Qin Wentian's fist as a surge of destructive energy abruptly ravaged Qin Wentian's arm, incinerating everything within it. Boom! Waves of terrifying energy gushed into his arm, extinguishing the flames. These flames could transform into illusory objects that didn't exist. Their attacks were formless and formless. If one wasn't careful, they would be struck by it. However, the destructive power of the flames was comparatively weaker and was easily erased by the energy within Qin Wentian's body. Despite that, his arm was still charred. Stepping forth, Qin Wenyin felt the terrifying pressure bearing down on him. He was only 4 steps away from the earthen yellow constellation fruits. "You don't know the immensity of death." Yin Ting coldly snorted. An even greater surge of energy gushed forth from his body as bolts of lightning blasted downwards, illuminating his entire body. He was like a god of thunder staring disdainfully at Qin Wenyin, exuding an unparalleled sense of imposingness. Xie Yu's countenance was ice-cold as well. His 9 arms emitted roaring sounds at the same time, targeting Qin Wenyin. However, at this moment, Qin Wenyin acted as though he didn't see it. His gaze was focused on the area in front of him as he coldly stated, "With me, Qin Wenyin, there's no share of the constellation fruits here." After speaking, he disregarded everything, disregarding the threat of his opponent's attacks, disregarding everything, taking another step forward. Chapter 491. The constellation fruits that contained the mandate of Great Earth emanated a terrifying pressure, crushing down on every part of one's body. A formless barrier formed in the air, making it extremely difficult to approach. Qin Wenyin was proficient in the mandate of force. His mandate of force was similar to the mandate of Great Earth, and right now, his bloodline power surged as his mandate of demons erupted forth. Hence, he was only 3 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. However, the 3 experts around him were none other than the heaven chosen of the 3 transcendent powers. Jin Yan, an outstanding character from the Jin Yan aristocrat clan. Yin Ting, a heaven chosen of the Yin clan. Xie Yu, a heaven chosen of the ecliptic sect. With these 3 present, how could they allow Qin Wenyin to obtain the constellation fruits? Especially when Qin Wenyin was so arrogant. "With me here, the constellation fruits won't belong to any of you." Even Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were in the air seizing the mandate of metal, lowered their heads and glanced at Qin Wenyin below. Traces of worry could be seen in their eyes. Ji Shui initially wanted to tell Qin Wenyin to leave so that he wouldn't be hunted down by them after he obtained the constellation fruits. However, not only did Qin Wenyin refuse to leave, he even personally participated in the contest for the constellation fruits. With so many heaven chosen present, how could he interfere? However, each level of the constellation fruits had a different level of pressure. Su Feng and Ji Shui were facing the pressure from the mandate of metal and had no time to worry about Qin Wenyan. They could only pray for him. This fellow is too impulsive. He has underestimated the demon-level geniuses of Xian King City. Ji Shui silently mused, breaking out in cold sweat for Qin Wenyan. When the three heaven-chosen saw that Qin Wenyan was a step ahead, their eyes gleamed with a terrifying coldness. However, this step of Qin Wenyan's wasn't for nothing. As his foot landed, a formless sword intent manifested in the air. However, how could this be sufficient to cause the three of them to waver? Above Yin Ting's head, a terrifying lightning python appeared, exuding demonic qi. This was none other than his astral nova. With a flick of his finger, numerous illusory lightning pythons lunged towards Qin Wenyan. Each and every strand of lightning contained a terrifying destructive might. At the same time he blasted out this attack, he took another step forward. Similarly, there were only 3 more steps remaining. Qin Wenyan didn't care about his opponent's attack. His arms transformed into the scales of a demonic dragon as he blasted out 9 palm imprints, intertwining with the lightning pythons. At the same time, Xie Yu's attack arrived. His 9 arms blasted out a series of fist shadows. Qin Wenyan blasted out with his palms, causing the space around him to tremble and shatter. However, the fist shadows filled the sky, burying his opponent within. His will of mandates caused the power of the fist shadows to stack together, growing stronger and stronger, transforming into a gigantic fist wave, capable of destroying everything. Qin Wenyan didn't retreat. The divine energy in his body erupted forth as he blasted out 9 palm imprints. Only then did the fist light dissipate. But at this moment, Jin Yan's attack arrived. A lotus of golden flames gushed over. This time around, it was no longer illusory but corporeal, containing a fearsome fiery might within. Qin Wenyan pointed out. Sword qi gushed forth, yet the lotus didn't explode. When it neared Qin Wenyan, a thunderous boom rang out, wanting to destroy everything. Qin Wenyan retreated a step as he fell downwards. The terrifying flames wreaked havoc in his surroundings, but Qin Wenyan's sword might surged forth, allowing him to withstand it. And at this moment, Xie Yu and Jin Yan borrowed the force of the tremors from the impact to step out as well. The 3 of them advanced while Qin Wenyan retreated. All 3 of them were a step ahead of Qin Wenyan. Ignorant fool! Jin Yan coldly spoke. His eyes flickered with golden flames as he stared at Qin Wenyan. After this matter is over, I will kill you. After speaking, the 3 of them frenziedly unleashed their own strength. Exchanging glances, they circulated the energy in their bodies and madly took a step upwards. A thunderous boom rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. All 3 of them unleashed their strongest auras, resisting the pressure. Right now, they were only 2 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. The 3 of them exchanged glances, and from the eyes of each other, they could see an intense battle intent flickering within. There were only 2 more steps left. Whoever took the first step would be able to pluck the 2 constellation fruits containing the mandate of Great Earth. As for Qin Wenyan, he was no longer in their considerations. Qin Wenyan stared at the 3 of them. In that instant, he didn't advance but retreated instead. His body landed on the ground, but the sharpness in his eyes grew even more intense. Vast amounts of demonic qi erupted forth. His body was clad in a demonic armor, and with a stomp of his foot, a terrifying might shook the earth as he soared up into the skies once again. Stepping out, his sword intent whistled through the air. Stepping out 2 steps, his sword qi engulfed the area. Stepping out 3 steps, Qin Wenyan's entire body was shrouded by a terrifying sword halo. Ta! Yin Ting, who was in the air, roared. His entire body was enveloped by the terrifying might of lightning, breaking apart everything. He took another step forward, and was now only a step away from the constellation fruits. Jin Yan's body was enveloped by the golden lotus light. The screen of light pierced through the air as he took another step forward. Xie Yu's 9 arms blasted out in all directions. Borrowing the power of the tremors, he similarly took another step forward. Their eyes were all fixed on the constellation fruits ahead. They were only a single step away. They all noticed that other than the pressure, the humming of swords could be heard echoing throughout the heavens and earth. Qin Wenyan took his fourth step as his sword-type astral nova floated above his head. Numerous illusory sword shadows could be seen revolving around him as the swords swayed in the wind. As the fifth step landed, the entire space was enveloped by the dual might of sword chi and earth pressure. The gazes of the three in front froze. Yin Ting turned his head to glance at Qin Wenyan, only to see that Qin Wenyan was already one step behind him. Qin Wenyan actually dared to return? How powerful was that sword chi? This constellation fruit is mine. Yin Ting took the final step forward. How can I allow you to enjoy it alone? Jin Yen similarly stepped out. Roar! Xie Yu howled in madness, not fearing the pressure as he took another step forward. The three of them stepped forward and stretched their hands out, aiming for the same constellation fruit. This constellation fruit was located at the front, it would be easier for them to pluck it. But at this very moment, that lingering sword might suddenly bore down on them. Qin Wenyan's sixth step landed, and the true killing might of the seven annihilations swordplay directly penetrated into their bodies. Their countenances drastically changed, as though millions upon millions of sword intents were piercing through their bodies. Puchi! The branch of the constellation fruit was directly severed. That terrifying pressure was broken apart by the sword chi as it slashed downwards. Two constellation fruits fell together with the branch. The countenances of the three drastically changed as they stretched their hands out to pluck the fruits. However, they only saw boundless sword light slashing through the branches of the constellation fruits, destroying everything in its path. You dare! Yin Ting roared as he retracted his palms. His body pressed downwards as the power of thunder and earth frenziedly converged into a terrifying bolt of lightning that lunged towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan stretched his hands out and grabbed hold of the constellation fruit. He felt an incomparably heavy sensation, but with an intention of his will, he directly kept it. Pointing his finger upwards, a towering sword might swept over everything, blocking the incoming attack. His body directly fell downwards, instantly returning to the ground. Impudent! The three of them in the air all radiated a terrifying killing intent as they instantly appeared in the airspace above Qin Wenyan, surrounding him. You are courting death! Yin Ting stomped downwards, his rage towering up into the skies. The earth beneath his feet directly cracked apart under the might of the lightning. Qin Wenyan stared up in the air, only to see that many of the constellation fruits on the gigantic constellation tree had already been plucked. The golden-colored constellation fruits contained a powerful mandate of metal. One was seized by Jian Jingtian from the Heaven Shocking Sword sect, while the other was seized by Su Feng. As for the constellation fruits containing the mandate of demonic beasts, Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan seized one, while the other was snatched away by Little Rascal. As for the blood-colored constellation fruits containing the mandate of blood, all of them were seized by Shang-Chi. On the gigantic constellation tree, only the 4 constellation fruits on the top 2 layers remained unharvested. But at this moment, the various experts were already rushing over there. Only Yin Ting and the others didn't do so. They wanted to kill Qin Wenyan, their killing intents frenziedly gushed forth. Qin Wenyan dared to seize their constellation fruits. He had to die for sure. There was no chance of survival at all. Right now, they didn't even have a single constellation fruit in their hands. Bzz. At this moment, the immortal binding rope appeared in the air, shooting towards Yin Ting and the other 2. Yin Ting and the others stiffened as they evaded. The immortal binding rope rapidly extended outwards as Ji Shui stood in the air. Su Feng's silhouette flickered as he appeared with a resplendent long spear in his hands. The 3 of you are geniuses from the various major powers, yet you actually joined forces to deal with a single person? What a joke! Ji Shui stared at the 3 of them as she mocked. She didn't expect that Qin Wenyan would actually be able to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, snatching the constellation fruits away. Do the 2 of you want to interfere in this matter? Yin Ting coldly asked. In the air, a group of experts descended, sealing this entire space. These were none other than the experts from the Yin clan and Golden Fire aristocrat clan. The so-called geniuses are merely SOSO. The three of us actually couldn't even obtain a single constellation fruit. The long spear in Su Feng's hand spun as a terrifying sharpness gushed forth from it. Su Feng, if you want to interfere in this matter, even if you are an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, I will still kill you all. Yin Ting coldly spoke. If you guys don't want the other constellation fruits, I will go get them for you. Qin Wenqian's countenance was calm. Although these geniuses were strong, and their mandates had all reached the transformation boundary of the second level, given his methods, he wouldn't fear them at all. However, right now, he didn't have the time to waste on them. The constellation fruits were extremely important to heavenly dipper sovereigns like Wu Xiu. It could increase the speed of one's comprehension of their mandates, and could even aid in comprehending the true intent of their mandates. As for the remaining 4 constellation fruits, he wanted them all. Su Feng, Ji Shui, snatched the constellation fruits. Qin Wenyin transmitted his voice over. After which, he stepped out and executed stellar transposition, vanishing from his original location. Yin Ting and the others turned their heads, only to see Qin Wenyin rushing towards the peak of the celestial constellation fruit tree, where the experts were gathered. Has this fellow gone mad? Ji Shui's countenance stiffened when she saw Qin Wenqian's actions. Those 4 constellation fruits were the hardest to obtain, and many had failed in their attempts. Not only that, other than them, the other experts were all gathered there. If they rushed over now, the chances of success would be too low, and it would be extremely dangerous. Yin Ting and the others had extremely ugly expressions on their faces when they saw Qin Wenyin ignoring their encirclement and actually leaving so easily. Inclining their heads, they soared into the air, staring at Qin Wenyin as though they were looking at a dead man. Chapter 492. The ancient tree towered into the skies. It was unknown how many growth rings it had. At this moment, Qin Wenyin was walking towards the constellation fruit that contained the mandate of space. He didn't want to obtain this fruit for himself, but for Qin. From the Sky Harmony City until now, there were many people who had helped him before. Foster father Qin Chuan, teacher Mustang, senior sister Luo Huan, Fairy Qing. To many people, Qin Wenyin owed them all. To Jing he owed her the most. Qing wasn't good with words. She didn't speak much and was always cold. Back then, she only obeyed Fairy Qingmei's orders, silently protecting him. And this protection lasted for 7 to 8 years. During these 8 years, whenever he was on the brink of death, the person who appeared would always be Qing. During the battle at the Pill Emperor Hall, although he was heavily injured, he could still remember the silhouette of Qing descending from the skies. When he transformed into a great rock, although that woman didn't speak, she still accompanied him silently. Finally, she helped him obtain the great Nirvana immortal art. He didn't know how much Qing had sacrificed for him, but at the very least, he knew that her love for him was extremely heavy. Qing is proficient in the mandate of space. This constellation fruit that contains the mandate of space would be of great help to her. I have to obtain this fruit no matter what. Qin Wenqian's eyes flashed with an intense determination. At this moment, the surrounding area was filled with experts, and the majority of them were all advancing forward, wanting to pluck the constellation fruit. However, how could it be so difficult to obtain a constellation fruit that contained the mandate of space? The closer one got to it, the more chaotic the space around it became. If one wanted to advance forward, they would end up walking in the wrong direction instead. Not only that, there was also a powerful spatial laceration force within. Hence, up until now, no one had succeeded. Unless there was an expert who was extremely proficient in the mandate of space, they might be able to obtain it easily. Below, Yin Ting and the others who were chasing after Qin Wenyin could be seen rushing over. The demonic qi radiating from Qin Wenyin was extremely terrifying. He directly took a step forward as a surge of spatial energy enveloped him. Yin Ting, who was chasing after him, lifted his palms and attacked. The lightning python devoured everything, yet it seemed as though it had slammed into a spatial barrier. Qin Wenyin had already entered the spatial dimension of the constellation fruits. When Qin Wenyin stepped into the surroundings of the space mandate fruit, he discovered that he had stepped into a different dimension. Waves of terrifying energy swept over him, as though wanting to tear his body apart. This dimension seems to be independent. The space here seems to be in a state of disorder. Qin Wenyin abruptly retreated when he saw a spatial beam slashing his way, after which he dashed forward once more. Although the space here was somewhat distorted, his footsteps were still resolute as he advanced towards the location of the constellation fruits. Qin Wenyin had a strange feeling. He was clearly only a step away from the constellation fruits, yet it felt as though he was separated by several layers of space, as though he was very far away. Strands of spatial energy tore through the air. Qin Wenyan's blood surged. His eyes were filled with determination as he continued advancing forward. An instant later, a few other figures appeared in the space he was in. Among them, there was actually an extremely beautiful silhouette, the princess of Xianqing City, Shangyu. Qin Wenyin could sense that the two of them were currently in the same space. "It's you?" Shangyu stared at Qin Wenyin as a cold intent flickered in her eyes. Qin Wenyin casually cast a glance at her before he continued advancing forward. The spatial energy around him grew stronger and stronger, causing the demonic qi around him to churn wildly. The mandate of space is truly tyrannical. If I can cultivate a true intent of my mandate, I would be able to manifest a celestial phenomenon. The might of my mandate would be even more powerful compared to ordinary celestial phenomenon ascendants. Qin Wenyan mused. Although cultivation depended on the person, and the same mandate could unleash different levels of might in the hands of different people, there were still some mandates that had an advantage over others. Hand over the spatial brush. A voice drifted over from behind Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan abruptly turned and slammed his palms down. A demonic dragon roared as its aura towered up into the skies. Just a casual palm strike of his contained an incomparably terrifying might. Shangyu lifted her palms to receive the attack. However, her cultivation base was only at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. How could she compare against Qin Wenyan, who was at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper? The instant the two of them collided, the dragon imprint transformed into waves of formless energy that gushed into Shangyu's body, causing her robes to be torn apart. Pang! The violent force of the impact forced Shangyu to retreat explosively. Her eyes turned cold as she stared at Qin Wenyan. The collar of her robes was torn apart, revealing her snow-white neck. Do you really think that idiot would have a chance just because he fought for the spatial brush? Qin Wenyan glanced at Shangyu. Shangyu only felt a terrifying surge of energy gushing into her sea of consciousness, causing an unsightly expression to appear on her face. The current Qin Wenyan was indeed much stronger than what she had imagined. Bzz. At the instant Qin Wenyan turned, Shangyu's body abruptly erupted with the might of her bloodline. In that instant, her entire body exuded a cold, killing intent. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, causing people to shiver in fear. This kind of pressure was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Shangyu was a direct descendant of the royal clan of Granshang. She possessed the power of her bloodline, the rebirth bloodline. The so-called rebirth bloodline, when activated, would allow the power of the bloodline to permeate every single part of the body, causing every part of the body to be filled with a powerful vitality, akin to the power of rebirth. Such a powerful vitality would allow the body of the possessor of the rebirth bloodline to experience an all-around upgrade, as well as the vitality of the possessor. Everything in the body would be stimulated, and when the user attacked, the amount of energy they could muster would naturally be more ferocious. The energy in the body circulated frenziedly, causing one's defense to be greatly enhanced as well. When this kind of bloodline was activated, even if the power of one's bloodline wasn't particularly powerful, their combat prowess would still be multiplied. Qin Wenyan turned his head, and upon seeing the changes in Shangyu, he instantly knew that Shangyu had activated the power of her bloodline. Not only that, when he saw the coldness in Shangyu's pitch-black eyes, as well as her long hair that resembled a waterfall, he knew that Shang Yu's bloodline wasn't weak at all. The power of one's bloodline was innate, it was extremely miraculous. Qin Wenyan knew that he possessed a powerful demonic bloodline that could allow him to enter a berserk and demonic state, even breaking through to the next level. Just like now, demonic qi towered up into the skies, akin to the sovereign of demons. Although he was at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, he actually unleashed the aura of a 4th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Who says I can't fight? Shang Yu, as the genius princess of the Xian King's manor, was extremely outstanding in terms of both strength and appearance. How could she endure Qin Wentian's disdain? Her astral nova manifested, it was in the form of a sword. This sword was as cold as winter water, contrasting perfectly with Shang Yu's current demeanor. An intense killing intent permeated the air, causing the temperature of the surroundings to plunge, causing people to feel as though their bodies were about to be sealed in ice. With Shang Yu at the center, numerous illusory images of ice manifested in her surroundings. With a single slash of her sword, the entire space seemed to be sealed in ice, leaving only her and Qin Wenyan. That coldness directly seeped into Qin Wentian's body, and with every inch the sword advanced, the coldness from Qin Wentian's body grew even stronger. When Qin Wenyan sensed this intent, he suddenly understood why Shang Yu wanted the spatial brush no matter what. Most probably, the energy she wanted to cultivate in the next cultivation realm was none other than the mandate of space. Not only did she want to use the spatial brush to inscribe divine inscriptions, she also wanted to borrow the power of the spatial brush to sense the wondrous mandate of space. And now, she wanted to seize the space constellation fruits. But no matter what her motive was, no matter what relationship she had with Qin Wenyan, nobody would be able to stop him from seizing the space constellation fruits. Stepping out, a terrifying aura gushed forth unceasingly. The aura of a demon monarch grew even more intense as his long hair fluttered in the wind. Boom boom boom. Qin Wenyan consecutively took 4 steps forward, as sword qi engulfed the heavens and earth. The killing sword might directly gushed into Shang Yu's body, yet Shang Yu's sword also slashed over, directly piercing into Qin Wentian's body. Scram! Qin Wentian's finger pressed downwards, as the entirety of his energy and sword might converged into a single finger strike. Heaven-breaking finger, a single finger strike that could break the heavens. As the finger descended, Qin Wenyan flicked his sleeves as he turned and continued forward. Upon seeing Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian and the others getting closer to the constellation fruits, his countenance turned heavy. If the constellation fruits landed in their hands, it would be much more difficult for him to seize them. Qin Wenyan ignored everything and stepped out. With a wave of his hand, an ancient scroll appeared, directly wrapping around his body. Qin Wentian's body began to emanate the power of space. I wonder if I can sense the power of space? Qin Wenyan closed his eyes as an intense sense of perception gushed forth. He stood at his original location, waiting. It was already too late for him to take one step at a time. He only had a single chance, and that was to directly step through the spatial barrier. Using the power of space from his body, he tried to sense the entire space around him. It was as though the power of space was flowing within him, until an instant later, the entire space became a straight line. In that instant, there were no spatial barriers between them and the constellation fruits. Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian stepped out, finally passing the final checkpoint. Their eyes flickered with excitement. And at the same instant, Qin Wenyan activated stellar transposition. Stellar transposition wasn't teleportation, it wasn't a spatial-level innate technique. It was merely an explosive burst of astral energy, allowing one's speed to reach an extreme in an instant. Hence, it was useless to use stellar transposition when there was a spatial barrier. But now, Qin Wentian's silhouette accurately appeared at the location where the constellation fruits were located. Intense spatial energy ravaged his body, yet he didn't hesitate as he stretched his hands out, grabbing towards the constellation fruits. His eyes flickered with a terrifying determination. With a clench of his fist, the 2 constellation fruits were caught in his grasp. The terrifying spatial energy caused his palms to be lacerated as traces of blood appeared on the surface. Behind him, Shang-Chi had a look of astonishment on his face as he stared at the silhouette that suddenly appeared. It was as though he had sensed something as a terrifying light flickered in his eyes. Die! The mad demon halberd in Shang-Chi's hands violently stabbed out, wanting to annihilate Qin Wenyan on the spot. Courting death. Jian Jingtian also stared in astonishment at the silhouette that just appeared. After which, his sword slashed out explosively. Qin Wenyan exerted strength in his hands, plucking the constellation fruits from the tree before keeping them away. The spatial pressure dissipated, the mad demon halberd had already pierced through his body, causing fresh blood to flow. At the same time, a resplendent sword light shot out, piercing into his skin. Pang! Stellar transposition was executed as his body soared up into the air. He didn't retreat, but soared up into the air instead. After keeping the constellation fruits, he touched the wound on his waist. There was blood flowing out, and an intense pain could be felt from that wound. Earlier, if he was slightly slower, the mad demon halberd would have already pierced into his body. There was also traces of blood beside his ear, an injury caused by the sword qi. As for Shang Yu, who was fighting against him earlier, she had just blocked the heaven-breaking finger and was coughing out a mouthful of blood. When she inclined her head, she saw Qin Wenyan snatching away the constellation fruits. After which, the spatial energy dissipated. Her beautiful eyes stared at the silhouette in front of her. Without the obstruction of the spatial energy, everyone soared up into the air and surrounded Qin Wenyan. Was this person not afraid of death after obtaining the constellation fruits? At this moment, Shang Yu and Jian Jingtian were both enraged. How could Qin Wenyan swallow the constellation fruits? Chapter 493. Qin Wenyan's silhouette soared upwards as he inclined his head and stared at the sky. Over there, the final 2 constellation fruits could be seen, both glowing with a crimson hue. Qin Wenyan had personally witnessed the death of the 2 constellation fruits not long ago. There was no sound or aura, and there weren't any injuries on them. These were the hardest fruits to obtain. As he neared, Qin Wenyan's heart pounded violently. He could feel every part of his body trembling, and the rate of his heartbeat was so fast that it felt as though his meridians were about to shatter. This caused him to halt his steps as he stared at the crimson fruits in the air, drawing in a deep breath. At this moment, Qin Wenyan stood on a tree branch, while Jian Jingtian and Shang-Chi appeared on his left and right. Below him, there were many silhouettes standing on the branches of the celestial constellation tree, all of them staring at him. Other than the 2 constellation fruits of Great Earth, he had also obtained 2 more space constellation fruits. Right now, in the eyes of everyone, he was undoubtedly a treasure. Compared to the 2 constellation fruits above, his value was even greater. You won't be able to keep the constellation fruits. Do you want the fruits or do you want your life? Shang-Chi wielded the terrifying berserk devil halberd in his hands as his blood surged. Every strand of his hair was akin to a sharp blade, and a brilliant light circulated in his palms, exuding an aura of sharpness. At the same time, a blood-colored glow circulated around his body, striking fear into the hearts of those who saw it. Hand over the constellation fruits to me and I will let you leave. Jian Jingtian stood on the other side, staring at Qin Wenyan. At this moment, Yin Ting, Xie Yu, and Jin Yan all arrived on the tree branches below. Their auras were all extremely terrifying, and they surrounded Qin Wenyan in this narrow space. Madman! Ji Shue's beautiful eyes flashed with worry when she saw Qin Wenyan facing off against so many experts alone. This fellow didn't care about anything else, and was almost struck by the berserk devil halberd. Now that he was surrounded, did he really not want his life anymore? If you want the constellation fruits, follow me up. Qin Wenyan soared up into the air as his heart pounded violently. It was as though every inch of his body was pulsating violently, on the verge of collapse. This kind of pulsation was caused by his heart. It was too terrifying. Shang-Chi stepped out, stretching out his palms as a blood-colored palm imprint grabbed towards Qin Wenyan. This palm imprint contained a towering blood might, causing Qin Wenyan's blood to surge chaotically as though it was about to break out of his body. Qin Wenyan coldly snorted. Fresh blood stained his palms, and with a wave of his hands, a blood-colored curse imprint blasted out. With a thunderous boom, a blood-colored might permeated the air. But at the same time, Jian Jingtian and the others below also stepped up, continuing to press down on Qin Wenyan. At this instant, the pressure Qin Wenyan felt was too terrifying. It was as though he was a sheep in a pack of wolves, and could die at any moment. Since you want it so much, then come up again. Qin Wenyan continued ascending the tree branch, getting closer to the dark red constellation fruits. The pulsation of his body grew even more terrifying, to the point where one could even hear the sound of his heart pounding unceasingly. No matter what, you can't escape death. Shang-Chi's voice was cold as he continued upwards. The sword halo around Jian Jingtian's body enveloped his entire body. The people below weren't willing to be outdone. They started to challenge the pressure from the last 2 constellation fruits. Instantly, with Qin Wenyan as the center, over 10 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns moved closer to the constellation fruits, or more accurately, they moved closer to Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan single-handedly led all the experts here into the envelopment of the celestial constellation tree. Boom boom. Qin Wenyan's heart pounded unceasingly. He closed his eyes and quietly sensed the trembling of his body, as though he was trying to get used to it. The power of his bloodline thrummed like an ocean. Lifting his foot, Qin Wenyan stepped out once more, causing the hearts of the crowd to pound wildly. Unknowingly, Qin Wenyan, who was using the constellation fruits to evade his pursuers, was only 2 steps away from the constellation fruits. Could it be that Qin Wenyan also wanted the last 2 constellation fruits that were the hardest to obtain? Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, and the other demon-level characters all had heavy expressions on their faces. They could guess what Qin Wenyan was thinking. They stared at Qin Wenyan. This man was extremely audacious, wanting to hog half of the constellation fruits for himself in front of so many geniuses from the various powers. Ji Shui and Su Feng were also among the crowd. Staring at Qin Wenyan, who was the closest to the constellation fruits, they also felt that this was ridiculous. This person's actions were too crazy. Even for Shang-Chi, he would have to consider if he could withstand the pressure if he wanted to take half of the constellation fruits. Yet this white-robed young man seemed to have no fear at all. Or maybe he didn't know how to write the word fear. At this moment, Qin Wenyan was feeling an unprecedented pressure. However, this pressure didn't come from those demon-level characters, but rather it came from the constellation fruits. These 2 constellation fruits were truly capable of killing. His heartbeat had already reached a terrifying frequency. Drawing in a deep breath, Qin Wenyan calmed his heart, doing his best to stabilize his state of mind. Every part of his body circulated in sync with his heartbeat, reaching a state of harmony. His steps once again advanced forward. At this moment, not only Qin Wenyan, the others who came with him had no time to care about anything else. They could only stabilize their own heartbeats, not daring to attack recklessly. Pooh! Qin Wenyan coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood, but he still stood there steadily, staring at the constellation fruits in front of him. What kind of mandate is this? Qin Wenyan had never seen such a thing before, yet he felt a strong desire in his heart. He wanted to get his hands on the constellation fruits. Only the last step is left. Shang Yu, who was below, stared at the white-robed young man on the tree branch. Her heart was filled with shock. This young man was a madman. Qin Wenyan wanted to stabilize his breathing, allowing his body to regain its balance. But below him, Xie Yu's 9 arms simultaneously shot out terrifying arrows, aiming straight at Qin Wenyan. At the same time, 2 of the arrows were locked onto Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian. The current Qin Wenyan, as long as there was an external attack, his heart would explode and he would die. As for the interspatial ring on his body after his death, Qin Wenyan had to obtain it no matter what. Careful! Ji Shui shouted to Qin Wenyan. Given Qin Wenyan's perception, he could naturally sense that there was a powerful killing intent locked onto him from behind. Not only him, Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian could feel it as well. Their auras gushed forth as they prepared to unleash their attacks. They had the same thoughts as Xie Yu. If Qin Wenyan died, They had to obtain his interspatial ring no matter what. Pang pang pang. The silhouettes of the experts all stepped out, moving in the direction of Qin Wenyin. They didn't care about the immense pressure, they had to fight for a sliver of an opportunity. Qin Wenyin didn't move at all. From the perspective of the spectators, Qin Wenyan's entire body was completely tensed up, and he had no way to move at all. This move of Xie Yu's was truly sinister. No wonder he was the one who was the furthest away from the constellation fruits. It seemed like Xie Yu had long since planned this, and was prepared to fire his arrow at the most crucial moment. This white-robed young man is truly courting death. He actually dared to get so close to the constellation fruits. The closer he is to the constellation fruits, the weaker his resistance would be. Some of the weaker cultivators silently mused as they stared at the crowd in the air. He had obtained quite a number of constellation fruits, but it was all for the benefit of someone else. This person would die for sure. Xie Yu's arrow would definitely penetrate through him. There was no way for him to block it, he could only wait for his death. But at this moment, the crowd only saw Qin Wenyan's palms moving as both of his palms blasted downwards. Boom boom. The sound of a bell chime rang out, and at this moment, it was as though a series of ancient bells had appeared in the air. This was none other than the heartbreak chime. In that instant, the countenances of Shang-Chi and the others instantly turned pale. They were already very close to the constellation fruits, and their hearts were pounding furiously. At this moment, Qin Wenyan's innate technique was actually the heartbreak chime. Pooh! Shang-Chi felt as though his heart was about to explode. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body plummeted downwards. He circulated all of his energy to protect his heart from shattering. Pooh, pew, pew. At this moment, not only Shang-Chi, everyone else was also plummeting downwards, coughing out fresh blood. The reverberation of the bell chime was like a talisman that hastened death. The corpses of the fallen cultivators blocked Qin Wenyan from the range of Xie Yu's arrow. Unless Xie Yu's arrow could change direction, it would penetrate through the corpses of the fallen cultivators before continuing on towards Qin Wenyan. Xie Yu obviously didn't dare to do that. Not only that, he himself had also coughed out a mouthful of blood as his countenance turned pale. The scene at this moment could only be described as magnificent. Those who were waiting for Qin Wenyan's death below were all stunned as they stared at the scene in front of them. Regardless of geniuses, all of them plummeted downwards, including Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, Yin Ting, and the others. None of them were able to escape. At the instant Qin Wenyan's palms slammed out, the bodies of the geniuses all fell horizontally to the ground. It was as though all of this was to serve as a foil to that white-robed figure standing there proudly. He wasn't doing this to evade the pursuit. He was doing this for the constellation fruits. At the last step, he used a single palm strike to destroy all his opponents. He alone wanted to become enemies with all the geniuses present. So what of it? Since he dared to seize half of the constellation fruits, what else wouldn't he dare to do? Shang Yu's beautiful eyes froze. This scene caused her heart to tremble, causing her to hold her breath. It was as though she didn't dare to believe what she was seeing was real. This was too surreal. On her beautiful face, there was only shock left. Ji Shui and Su Feng's hearts twitched. They were deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. Ji Shui's lips were slightly agape. He dared to do this? So it turned out that he already had the confidence to do so. He was waiting for the geniuses to chase after him, getting closer to the constellation fruits, waiting for the decisive strike that would decide everything. At this moment, no one else dared to disturb him. The white-robed young man had his back facing the geniuses. He didn't even turn his head back to glance at them. When he felt the pressure from the constellation fruits, he already knew that when everyone neared the constellation fruits, the might unleashed by the heartbreak ancient bell would be extremely destructive, capable of sweeping away everything. That white-robed young man took the final step, keeping the dark red constellation fruits into his pouch. All the energy from the heartbreak ancient bell vanished in an instant, leaving a deep impression in the hearts of the spectators. Even for Shang Yu, when that young man became a legend many years later, she would still remember this day. the first time that white-robed young man caused her heart to palpitate. Chapter 494. Now that the constellation fruit tree no longer contained the will of mandates, the pressure exerted by the constellation tree no longer had any effect on the others. Right now, on this towering ancient tree, there were only lush branches and leaves. Not a single constellation fruit was left, and Qin Wenyin himself had obtained 6 constellation fruits. Little Rascal, who had already sneaked to the side, had also obtained one. This meant that Qin Wenyin alone had obtained a total of 7 constellation fruits. As for this constellation fruit tree, naturally no one was willing to destroy it. Maybe it would be able to bear more constellation fruits in the future, but that would be something that would only happen many years later. Most probably, the other major powers wouldn't give up on the fight for it, but that wasn't a problem to be considered now. Chi-chi. Several silhouettes fell to the ground. These were those with weaker heart meridians. Under the might of Qin Wentian's heartbreak chime, their heart meridians were directly shattered, their life force severed. Earlier, when they were close to the constellation fruits, their hearts were too tensed up, akin to a taut bowstring. At this moment, it was as if a saber had sliced through them, easily breaking them apart. Leaving aside them, even Shang-Chi, who had a powerful bloodline, felt his heart meridians being injured. He fell to the ground unsteadily, almost falling to his knees. He directly swallowed a medicinal pill to stabilize his heart meridians, but the killing intent in his eyes was incomparably terrifying. Inclining his head, he stared at the constellation tree in the air, only to see Qin Wenyin soaring through the air like a great rock. A single person had obtained 6 constellation fruits. How could he not leave? Everyone here, even if they obtained 2 or 3 constellation fruits, had no choice but to leave. Stop him. Kill him. Numerous voices rang out at the same instant. Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, and the other Heaven's Chosen all called out. Those who weren't injured, their silhouettes flickered as they rushed towards Qin Wenyin. The one chasing the fastest was none other than Xieyu. Earlier, he was the furthest away from the constellation fruits, and hence, he was the one who suffered the least damage. Upon seeing Qin Wenyin wanting to flee, all 9 of his arms aimed their arrows at Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin felt the terrifying arrow coming at him from behind. It flashed like a giant rock, and the arrow flew over his head. Little Rascal dashed over and appeared at his side. 1 man and 1 beast dashed madly into the mountain range. There was no longer any need to stay behind. Where are you going? An ear-piercing voice drifted over as a raging wind howled. Qin Wenyin only felt a shadow above his head. Inclining his head, he saw a silhouette appearing there. This person was none other than the Heaven Chosen of the Wind Rock aristocrat clan, Feng Yunhe. At this moment, a pair of wings had sprouted out of his body, resembling a great rock. His speed was even faster than everyone else here. The Feng Yunhe swooped downwards, stretching out his hands. His hands were akin to golden claws, indestructible and unstoppable, directly grabbing towards Qin Wenyin. What a powerful attack! Qin Wenyin could feel the terrifying power of the claws. The divine energy in his body roared, and his blood surged. He blasted out a seal and the curse aura filled the air. This was the blood curse imprint. Bang! As the intense attacks collided, Feng Yunhe seemed to have sensed the might of the curse. His silhouette flickered as he vanished from his original location. Qin Wenyin stared ahead, only to see a silhouette floating there. It was none other than Feng Yunhe. Qin Wenyin looked at the Feng Yunhe blocking his way. The Feng Yunhe had a pair of wings, and there seemed to be a bloodline power roaring within it. The Wind Rock aristocrat clan, the meaning behind their name was Wind Rock. The blood of the Wind Rock clan flowed in their veins. In the Xian King city, the speed of those from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan was unrivaled. Even the King Manor of the Xian King city couldn't compare to them. As a Heavens Chosen from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan, Feng Yunhe naturally wasn't someone ordinary 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns could compare to. His combat prowess was simply too great. Qin Wenyin could kill so many 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns alone. If Feng Yunhe was given enough time, he would be able to do the same as well. Ordinary cultivators at the same level of cultivation couldn't compare to him in terms of speed and attack power. How could they even fight against him? Feng Yunhe wasn't just fast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become a heaven's chosen. Spit out the constellation fruits. Feng Yunhe blocked Qin Wentian's path. Momentarily, the people behind him all rushed over. Qin Wentian naturally couldn't continue fighting. His silhouette flickered as he landed on Little Rascal's back. A pair of golden wings appeared on Little Rascal's back as it arced through the air, flying away. Feng Yunhe coldly snorted. Momentarily, his body was akin to a true rock in the wind. With a wave of his palms, numerous golden spears appeared in his talons. The raging wind howled. Feng Yunhe locked onto Qin Wenyan. The golden spears blasted out explosively, blocking Qin Wentian's path of retreat. At the same time, another golden spear pierced towards Qin Wentian's body. Little Rascal rapidly descended from the air, directly landing on the ground, dodging the golden spears. Feng Yunhe's silhouette flickered as he appeared in front of Qin Wenyan once more, blocking Qin Wentian's path of retreat. Qin Wenyan had no chance of escaping alive. A raging wind gusted as numerous silhouettes floated in the air. During this short moment of delay, many experts from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan arrived. All of them had golden spears in their hands as they floated in the air, coldly staring at Qin Wenyan below. Behind them, the experts from the various powers, including Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian and the other Heavens Chosen, all had terrifying killing intent flickering in their eyes as they locked onto Qin Wenyan from afar. Ji Shui madly sprinted forward, yet Su Feng pulled her back. Ji Shui turned her head back, only to see that Su Feng wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the vast army ahead as he shook his head. "I'm the same as you, I owe him my life. But if we fight now, it would be no different from sending ourselves to our deaths. There's no meaning to it." Su Feng was clearly a rational person. From an emotional point of view, they should help Qin Wenyan. But from a rational point of view, such a method of death would be pointless. This voice was extremely cruel. Ji Shui's mouth was agape as she stared at the boundless aura ahead. She felt a deep sense of helplessness. Although her strength wasn't bad, against so many experts, there was no way she could survive. That crimson-eyed demonic beast has disappeared. Maybe it died in his hands. Since he dared to seize the constellation fruits, maybe he has some life-saving methods. Su Feng spoke in a low voice. Although he had his suspicions as well, in such a situation, there was no way they could survive. His words caused Ji Shui's eyes to brighten. Maybe he really did have a solution. Shang Yu's silhouette flickered as she lagged behind. Staring at the experts ahead, they were like a pack of hungry wolves hunting for their prey. How could that white-robed young man survive in such a dire situation? Qin Wenyan stood on the ground. His footsteps halted as he stared at the silhouettes radiating a towering killing intent in the air. In addition to the fact that there were more and more cultivators gathering behind him, he was sure that as long as they all attacked together, he would be reduced to dust. "Hand over the constellation fruits and I won't kill you. You might still have a chance to live." Feng Yunhe roared at Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan glanced at Feng Yunhe as his blood surged within him. His gaze was incomparably demonic as his long hair fluttered in the wind. Stepping out, his sword intent permeated the air, sweeping over everything. Boom, boom, boom. Qin Wenyan continued stepping out. With every step he took, the sword chi he emitted grew stronger and stronger. When his fourth step landed, boundless sword chi appeared in the air. "You are courting death." Feng Yunhe roared. His golden spear pierced through the air, and at the instant he acted, the silhouettes in the air all reacted at the same time. Countless golden spears pierced through everything, shooting towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan acted as though he didn't see anything. He took the fifth step, and as his foot landed, the bodies of those in the surroundings trembled violently. It was as though sword chi had penetrated through their bodies. Qin Wentian's astral nova flashed as it manifested. The astral nova trembled violently, as though a forest of swords had appeared between the heavens and the earth. However, the golden spears all shot over. Pang! Astral light erupted as his silhouette vanished, directly reappearing in the air. It was as though in that instant earlier he had passed through the gaps between the golden spears and soared up into the air. After which, he took his sixth step. The sound of swords resonated in the air, causing the countenances of the people in the surroundings to drastically change. They hurriedly retreated while raising their palms to attack. The astral novas in their bodies were all trembling violently, as though streams of sword intent were directly penetrating into their bodies. Fresh blood splashed out as their arms were torn apart by the sword intent. Boundless sword might ravaged their bodies. Even Feng Yunhe's body trembled as he sensed the sword might permeating the air. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness. Qin Wentian's body tensed up. It was difficult for him to unleash that final sword strike. The 7 annihilation swordplay, a sword strike for each step. Every sword strike contained the might of the previous 5 swords, and each sword strike required an even stronger force to be unleashed. At this moment, for the 6th sword strike, Qin Wenyan could sense the heavens and earth, transforming the energy of heaven and earth into swords. He had already reached his limit. Shang-Chi and the others howled in rage as they rushed over. When they felt that terrifying sword might, terrifying auras erupted forth from their bodies, as though sword might was circulating around them. However, after this sword strike landed, they really wanted to see how Qin Wenyan would die. Jian Jingtian stepped out, as boundless sword might gushed forth from his body. Lifting his palms, the heavenly dipper sword spun madly as it whistled through the air. 1 sword gave birth to 2 swords, 2 swords gave birth to 4 swords. In front of him, a row of swords appeared, each and every one of them exuding terrifying sword chi. Die! Jian Jingtian waved his hands, as the row of swords in front of him pierced through the air, as though they could penetrate through everything, instantly arriving before Qin Wenyan. However, at this instant, Qin Wentian's body seemed to have an incomparable suction force to the swords. The swords were about to penetrate through his body, yet they were forcefully halted in their tracks. Die! Jian Jingtian howled in rage. Momentarily, the row of swords continued their slaughter, wanting to annihilate Qin Wenyan. Bang! A terrifying sword might abruptly erupted forth from Qin Wentian's body. It was as though the entire space around him had transformed into sword chi. Lifting his foot, Qin Wenyan stomped down with great difficulty. Finally, his foot landed on the ground. With this step, the row of swords formed by Jian Jingtian actually couldn't be controlled and were all swept backwards. At the same time, this entire space was filled with countless beams of sword light. For a period of time, fresh blood splattered through the air. It was unknown how many experts had fallen, some even directly turned into dust, dissipating under the might of the sword intent. This time around, it wasn't merely an injury, it was a complete annihilation. Feng Yunhe, Shang-Chi and the others all retreated with explosive speed. The astral novas in their bodies trembled violently, as though under the might of that sword might, their astral novas were on the verge of shattering. At this moment, their hearts were filled with terror. This innate technique of Qin Wenyan was meant for mass killing. If it was targeted at a single person, how terrifying would the might of that attack be? This sword strike caused Qin Wentian's sword Yuanfu to be completely emptied out. The 7th sword strike of the 7 annihilation swordplay was too terrifying, but the effect was also shocking. At least half of the experts present were either heavily injured or died on the spot. Those who block my path die. Qin Wentian roared. Astral light erupted forth as his silhouette vanished once again, ignoring the exhaustion of his astral energy. He directly appeared in front of one of the experts, and a terrifying blood-colored palm imprint slammed downwards. That person used his bare hands to block it, but after being struck by the blood-colored curse imprint, his entire arm was instantly reduced to a pile of dried bones. Moments later, the rest of his body was covered in blood as he screamed in agony as he fell from the air. Boom! After Qin Wenyan killed that person, he vanished once again, reappearing in front of another expert. With a wave of his hand, an ancient bell chimed, penetrating deep into the heart of that expert, causing him to cough out blood. That expert sensed Qin Wentian's presence and immediately retreated with explosive speed. However, it was already too late. After the heartbreak chime, Qin Wentian executed stellar transposition again. Qin Wentian's palm slashed out as the keening of a sword could be heard, slicing through the throat of that expert, killing people, seizing their lives as though he was invincible. Chapter 495. Qin Wentian's silhouette was akin to a god of slaughter, ruthlessly impacting the hearts of the crowd. In the blink of an eye, over 10 heavenly Dipper sovereigns had fallen. These experts, if placed in any of the major powers, could all be considered as core characters. Staring ahead, Qin Wentian stood proudly in the air after the slaughter, exuding a demon-like handsomeness. Just a single glance from him was enough to cause fear in the hearts of people. It was as though he was the monarch of all demons. The constellation fruits shall be seized by those who are strong enough. Since I've already seized them, how can I allow any of you to touch them? Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he departed once more. Little rascal who had shrunk back to its original size expanded once more, transforming into a golden-colored primordial demon. It caught hold of Qin Wentian and soared into the air. In that instant, the crowd was so shocked that they paused for a moment, not daring to give chase. "Where do you think you're going?" A person behind roared. However, Qin Wentian's eyes flickered, as though he had a third eye. With a single glance, that person only felt countless demons rushing towards him. His countenance drastically changed as he fell into a dreamscape. "Pucci!" A scarlet demon halberd pierced right through his head. This was none other than Qin Wentian's stellar transposition, killing him with a single strike of his halberd. Qin Wentian pulled out the scarlet demon halberd as he coldly swept his eyes over the crowd. Only a few people dared to look him in the eye. Too powerful, an expert at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper was insta-killed. They didn't even have the chance to release their astral novas before they died. Scarlet demon halberd. The countenances of Shang-Chi and the others froze. Yin Ting also stared at the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hands. That was clearly the one forged by Qi Yezi. No wonder the scarlet demon halberd disappeared. So it turned out that it was actually in the hands of this person. "Whoever dares to pursue, I'll kill them all." Qin Wentian continued moving forward. This time around, no one dared to say anything. Many people were already frightened by Qin Wentian's domineering aura, their hearts trembling. Those who were killed by Qin Wentian weren't weak at all. If they continued to chase after Qin Wentian, they wouldn't be able to defend against Qin Wentian's sure kill attacks. Moreover, this person had a strange divine ability that was similar to teleportation. He was extremely fast, as if he could instantly shift his position. This made it impossible for them to attack as a group. Otherwise, with their strength, a group attack would be enough to destroy Qin Wentian. But now, they were shocked by Qin Wentian's ruthless and decisive killing. Qin Wentian's outburst just now was too terrifying, and his strength was too astonishing. However, even though they were stunned, the heaven's favorites wouldn't give up just like that. Feng Yunhe's silhouette flickered, like a great rock soaring in the wind. A raging wind howled, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared above Qin Wentian. Fighting so recklessly, the astral energy in his body should be depleted soon. Xie Yu coldly spoke as he chased after Qin Wentian. His words caused the eyes of many to flicker. Indeed, they were shocked by Qin Wentian's ferocious might, but in truth, a battle of that level would definitely exhaust a terrifying amount of astral energy. Qin Wentian's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, and he used his unique bloodline to raise his aura to the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Most probably, Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to maintain his berserk state for too long. He was intentionally using this to scare them. Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, Yin Ting and Jin Yen, the 6 heavens' favorites, all chased after Qin Wentian. The others also followed behind, but they didn't dare to get too close to them. The strength of heaven's favorites was extremely high. Even if Qin Wentian suddenly attacked, they would still be able to block it. Qin Wentian and Little Rascal continued advancing. When they sensed Feng Yunhe in the air, as well as the mandate of heaven's favorites following behind, Qin Wentian's pitch-black eyes gleamed with an intense coldness. If these people didn't kill him and obtain the constellation fruits, they wouldn't give up. His footsteps halted, and in an instant, the 6 chosen surrounded him. Their astral novas and wills of their mandates erupted forth at the same time, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. Bzz. The third eye in the center of his brows swept out as his will gushed towards the 6 people around him. He released his great dream astral nova, and momentarily, a dreamlike intent enveloped this entire space, causing people to feel a sense of drowsiness. Even the illusions of their dreams could be seen flashing past their eyes. Mandate of dreams. The heavens' favorites gritted their teeth as they guarded their state of mind, not allowing themselves to be affected. No matter how strong you are, you will die here today. Jian Jingtian's countenance was as sharp as a sword. Towering sword might gushed forth from his body as numerous astral novas floated before him. Slamming out with his palms, the keening of swords whistled through the air as they slashed towards Qin Wenyan. The power of this sword wasn't strong. Qin Wenyan merely waved his scarlet demon halberd, causing the sword chi to dissipate. However, Jian Jingtian unceasingly slammed out with his palms, causing the sword chi to converge into a sword chi river that tore through the skies, gushing towards Qin Wenyan. At the same time, Jian Jingtian stepped out, and with every step he took, the sword chi river grew even more terrifying. His sword intent continued to converge, causing terrifying rumbling sounds to echo out in the air. This was one of the ultimate innate techniques he cultivated, heaven-shocking sword, capable of causing mountains and rivers to tremble. The scarlet demon halberd in Qin Wentian's hands spun slightly. This scarlet demon halberd was an initial grade 5th-ranked divine weapon forged by Qi Yezi. However, this 5th-ranked divine weapon was a little unique. It wasn't a direct attack type weapon. Before his death, he used his life force and soul as a sacrifice, transforming it into a dream devil intent, wanting Yin Qing to lose his life. The scarlet demon halberd was proficient in using the power of dreams. Right now, Qin Wenyan wasn't too familiar with it, hence he had no way to unleash its true might. But even so, with the scarlet demon halberd in his hands, it was easier for one to fall into a dream devil trap. Although it wasn't a direct attack type weapon, it was still much more tyrannical compared to ordinary 4th-ranked divine weapons. His silhouette shuddered as the scarlet demon halberd in Qin Wentian's hands blasted out explosively, slamming into the sword chi river. A terrifying surge of energy permeated through, and the sword chi from Qin Wenyan grew even more intense, causing the sword chi river to seethe with madness. Yin Ting stood in the air as he coldly snorted. His body was shrouded by the power of millions of lightning bolts, resembling a god of thunder. He stretched out his palms as boundless lightning energy intertwined with each other. Finally, a bolt of lightning blasted down from the sky. His palms blasted downwards, and in an instant, a palm imprint of a lightning god exuded a towering might that blotted out the heavens and earth as it blasted towards Qin Wenyan. Jin Yen unleashed a golden flame lotus that was compressed to the extreme. Shang-Chi and Feng Yunhe also unleashed their own attacks. When Xieyu saw that everyone had unleashed their attacks, his 9 arrows shot through the air, converging into one as they shot towards Qin Wenyan. In that instant, all of Qin Wentian's paths of retreat were sealed. Although his stellar transposition allowed him to teleport, it wasn't a true spatial teleportation. Instead, it was a matter of speed. When all paths of retreat were sealed, no matter how fast he had to be able to evade the attacks of the innate techniques. The attacks of Heaven's Chosen are truly extraordinary. This Qin Wenyan wouldn't be able to escape even if he grew wings. The spectators silently mused. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's sword-type astral nova erupted forth in rage, colliding with the river of sword chi. At the same time, with a wave of his palms, his heavenly hammer astral nova smashed towards the incoming arrows of Xieyu. With a stomp of his feet, astral light erupted forth as he executed stellar transposition, aiming in the direction of Xieyu. Peng. Numerous tyrannical attacks blasted towards the location where Qin Wenyan was standing. The earth shattered as a deep crater appeared. The heavenly hammer astral soul swept out with terrifying might, shattering the incoming arrows as it continued on its way towards Xieyu. After the heavenly hammer astral soul, Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared. Traces of blood could be seen on his back, and his long hair was in a mess. Earlier, although he had executed stellar transposition, he was still struck by the aftershock of the attack. His astral nova is so powerful. In the hearts of the spectators, Qin Wentian's first 3 astral souls were all at the 5th heavenly layer. His first astral soul was also at the 5th heavenly layer, and the astral nova he condensed was also condensed from divine energy. For ordinary people, their first astral soul would usually be at the 2nd or 3rd heavenly layer, and the might of their astral novas would naturally be much weaker compared to their later astral novas. Qin Wentian stared at the incomparably gigantic heavenly hammer astral soul smashing towards him. His 9 arms simultaneously blasted out a terrifying golden fist light. Ping! The heavenly hammer astral soul was repelled by the impact force. Qin Wentian waved his palms and directly blasted out an attack behind him. At the same time, his third eye frenziedly swept its gaze over Xieyu, causing Xieyu's sea of consciousness to tremble violently. It was as though countless demons had appeared and were trying to tear him apart. Bzz! Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd slashed out, as the power of the dream devil grew even more terrifying. Xieyu stepped out, and the astral novas above his head simultaneously erupted forth. A terrifying fist smashed out, and at the same time, an earthen palm imprint blasted out. Scram! Xieyu howled in rage. However, he only saw an explosion of astral light as Qin Wentian's silhouette directly vanished. Xieyu's countenance drastically changed, and instantly his 9 arms swept backwards, aiming for the back of his body. At the same time, the other experts also rushed over. Feng Yunhe's speed was the fastest, and his golden claws smashed downwards, aiming for Qin Wentian's head. Die! Qin Wentian's will of mandate frenziedly gushed into Xieyu's sea of consciousness, while the scarlet demon halberd shot towards Xieyu's head. The 9 arms of Qin Wentian forcibly grabbed hold of the scarlet demon halberd, as a terrifying pressure bore down on the halberd. Peng! The scarlet demon halberd erupted forth with a terrifying power of the dream devil. At this moment, Xieyu was already in a daze, and he could only rely on his instincts to defend himself, not allowing the scarlet demon halberd to strike him. The mandate of earth and metal, their defense is truly terrifying. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. He retracted the scarlet demon halberd and slashed out towards Feng Yunhe. The two of them both shuddered violently, and Shang-Chi's blood palm imprint slashed over. Qin Wentian only felt that he was about to be drowned within this attack. Little rascal! Qin Wentian roared. Little rascal, who hadn't participated in the battle all this while, leaped onto Qin Wentian's body, and at the same time, his astral nova returned to his body. With a pull of his palms, the ancient scroll that enveloped Qin Wentian began to shimmer with an intense spatial energy. Not good. The countenances of the experts were all taken aback. This was a spatial scroll. Jian Jingtian's astral nova directly pierced out, instantly arriving before Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd smashed out, and with a thunderous boom, the impact caused his internal organs to tremble. Almost at the same time, a violent barrage of attacks rained down on Qin Wentian, while the spatial energy permeated the area to the extreme. A brilliant light flashed, and Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from his original location. Rumble! The ground where Qin Wentian was standing at crumbled apart. The 6 chosen all stood there in a daze. Qin Wentian had vanished. Right before their eyes, he left with 7 constellation fruits. Chapter 496. The celestial constellation fruit tree had been nurtured for an unknown number of years, and there were only a total of over 10 fruits. The strongest powers in Xian King City, including the heavens chosen from the various major powers, all came here to vie for the fruits. But in the end, half of the fruits were taken away by a young man in white with a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, he did so openly, killing more than half of the participants. Even when facing against the 6 heavens chosen, he still had the strength to resist. This matter would soon spread to Xian King City. At that time, the faces of those heavens chosen would all be thrown away. Too shameful, there were quite a few who didn't even manage to obtain a single constellation fruit. To them, this was an absolute humiliation. Their eyes stared dumbly at the deep crater in front of them. An intense killing intent gushed forth from Shang-Chi and the others. He fled. That was a spatial scroll. "Shang Yu!" Shang-Chi called out, only to see Shang Yu dashing over from behind. How could the impact of this battle not be intense? That young man in white was actually so terrifying? When she saw the spatial scroll, she instantly understood why Qin Wenyan would fight with her for the spatial brush. He himself was a divine inscriptionist, and one that could inscribe divine inscriptions. To him, the spatial brush was equivalent to a spatial scroll. He naturally wanted it. Not only that, given Qin Wenyan's personality, he would dare to snatch 7 constellation fruits under such circumstances. What was the point of him fighting with her for the spatial brush? Comparing the two of them, competing with her for the spatial brush was simply not worth mentioning. Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were behind, were also stunned speechless. So it turned out that he could have left long ago, but he didn't want to waste the spatial scroll. Instead, he chose to slaughter his way out and even wanted to kill Xie Yu at the very last moment. He had once saved Xie Yu's life, but Xie Yu wanted to kill him instead. Before he left, he still wanted to reclaim Xie Yu's life, but he was just a hair away. Su Feng and Ji Shui were thinking that if it wasn't for the 6 geniuses ganging up on him, Xie Yu would have already died on the spot. Shang Yu, that spatial scroll, was it created after he seized the spatial brush? Shang-Chi asked Shang Yu. It should be. He is a divine inscriptionist grandmaster. Shang Yu nodded. The spectators were even more astonished. Just how powerful was Qin Wenyan's combat prowess? Not only that, he was also a divine inscriptionist who could inscribe divine inscriptions on his own. If that's the case, he probably has more than one scroll. Shang-Chi's countenance was extremely sinister. Evidently, he had no intentions of sparing Qin Wenyan. The value of those constellation fruits was indescribable, and after suffering such a huge loss, how could he give up so easily? However, if Qin Wenyan had many space scrolls, even if they found him again, there would be no way to make him stay. At this moment, Shang-Chi and the others abruptly inclined their heads and stared at the sky behind them. Over there, a large number of experts from the various major powers had finally arrived. Sadly, it was already too late. They didn't manage to obtain many constellation fruits. All of them were with Qin Wenyan. What happened? The experts who had just arrived were puzzled when they saw the situation. Weren't they supposed to be fighting and snatching? Why were they all standing here in a daze? Uncle. Shang Yu glanced at the person who asked the question, after which she explained to him what had happened. Instantly, the experts who had just arrived understood what was going on. Doesn't the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan have the 10,000 miles tracking mirror? The expert from the King's Manor turned his gaze onto an expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan as he asked. The expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan nodded his head. If he has the space scrolls, even if we manage to track him, he would instantly flee. Hence, we need the aid of the sealing treasure of the Yin clan. That's right. If both the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan are willing to take out their treasures, there's no way for him to escape. The 10,000 miles tracking mirror would be able to lock onto an area of a few thousand miles. And given his strength, even if he inscribed the space scrolls, he would still be able to teleport a distance of 1,000 miles. The expert from the Heaven Shocking Sword sect nodded his head as he spoke. The eyes of the experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan flickered with uncertainty. After which, the expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan spoke. It's easy to say, but these 2 treasures are extraordinary. We have to report it to our clan first before we can claim it. In that case, after we obtain the constellation fruits, can't we split it among the major powers? The Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan can each take 2. As for the remaining 3, that's our problem. How about it? The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan pondered for a moment, but they didn't dare to offend the King's Manor too much. Hence, they nodded their heads in agreement. As for the other major powers, they were all silently cursing in their hearts. The King's Manor was extremely powerful. If the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan could take 2, he would definitely take the same number as well. In that case, it was as good as having nothing left for them to contend for. Fine, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to return and retrieve the treasures. The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Een clan nodded their heads before their silhouettes flickered as they sped away. Their cultivation bases were already at the upper 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper, and the existence of the constellation fruits would allow them to break through to the perfection boundary of their mandates. They might even be able to comprehend true intents. Uncle, there's one more here. At this moment, Shang-Chi's silhouette flickered as he pointed towards the horizon. Over there, Su Feng and Ji Shui were currently flying away, yet the expert from the King's Manor called out, "The 2 of you, please wait a moment." Su Feng's silhouette trembled. He knew that he wouldn't be able to leave. He turned and stared at the experts flying over, his eyes staring straight at the expert from the King's Manor. Juniors are Su Feng from the Qinghua Mountain and Junior's sister Ji Shui. Our only constellation fruit was obtained through our own strength. Senior, it wouldn't be too good if we snatch it away forcefully. An outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain actually dares to speak to me in this manner? Hand it over. The expert from the King's Manor, Shang Exen, had a cultivation base at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper and was the grandson of the old king. It was just that the position of king had yet to be inherited by him, but given his status, why would he care about an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain? Su Feng's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold, after which, he unwillingly handed over the constellation fruit. Shang Exen kept the constellation fruit with a wave of his hand as he coldly glanced at Su Feng. Senior, we'll meet again in the future. Su Feng clasped his hands as he coldly spoke, after which he and Ji Shui turned and departed together, their hearts filled with an intense hatred. Senior, what is this 10,000 miles tracking mirror they spoke of? Ji Shui asked Su Feng. This treasure can track the aura of a person, locking onto their location. When Qin Wendian battled, he left behind traces of his aura. Hence, they were able to use this treasure to track him down. Su Feng replied, his words causing Ji Shui's countenance to stiffen. Doesn't that mean Brother Qin is in danger? That would depend on his good fortune. This time around, he snatched away 7 constellation fruits under the noses of so many geniuses, and even killed so many people. How could the major powers of the Shen King City not be enraged? They would definitely not spare him. Su Feng's words caused Ji Shui to feel a trace of worry in her heart. Would the young man in white with unparalleled talent be able to escape this calamity? Just like what those people had predicted, although Qin Wentian's divine inscription scrolls could allow him to teleport, he was after all only a 4th-ranked divine inscriptionist. It was extremely taxing for him to inscribe divine inscriptions, and he could only teleport a few hundred miles away in a random direction. But even so, it was sufficient to shake off those people. On a mountain slope about 400 miles away from those people, abruptly, spatial fluctuations could be felt as a white-robed silhouette appeared. It was none other than Qin Wenyan. At this moment, his aura was fluctuating wildly, and his white robes were stained with blood. His body exuded an aura of weakness, yet his eyes shone with a brilliant light. His pitch-black pupils were as resplendent as the constellations in the night sky. This place is only a few hundred miles away. I have to continue advancing. If not, I'll be easily tracked. Qin Wenyan silently mused as his silhouette flickered. Although he teleported a few hundred miles away in an instant, given the speed of a 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, a distance of 500 miles wasn't a problem. However, even Qin Wenyan himself didn't know where he was. It would be extremely difficult for them to track him, But for the sake of caution, he chose a direction and continued advancing. A few hours later, Qin Wenyan arrived at a desolate mountain. He sat down cross-legged as Little Rascal squatted beside him and spat out a constellation fruit. This was none other than the constellation fruit that contained a powerful mandate of demons. If it's useful to you, just eat it. Qin Wenyan spoke to Little Rascal when he sensed the mandate of demons. Yeah. Little Rascal nodded its head and actually chomped down on the constellation fruit, swallowing it whole. Qin Wenyan also took out 6 constellation fruits. Because they had already been plucked, although the constellation fruits still contained a powerful mandate of demons within, they wouldn't be able to attack him. 2 spatial constellation fruits, these belonged to Qin. I'm afraid she wouldn't be able to find me in a short period of time. Qin Wenyan kept the spatial constellation fruit as he glanced at the other 4 constellation fruits that contain the mandate of Great Earth as well as the one that caused the hearts of those who looked at it to pound wildly. Such a powerful mandate of demons. Although it isn't the mandate I cultivate, I can still comprehend it frequently. Qin Wenyan kept the constellation fruits. After the consecutive battles, his body was extremely weak. It wasn't the time for him to comprehend the constellation fruits yet. You swallowed that crimson-eyed demonic beast. Purgatory, will it be able to return? Qin Wenyan gently stroked Little Rascal's head. Little Rascal nodded its head as it squeaked, causing a gentle smile to flicker in Qin Wenyan's eyes. Purgatory, was it about to appear? Retrieving a pile of Yuan meteor stones, he placed them on the ground as he casually laid down on the ground, entering the dreamscape to cultivate. The rate at which he could absorb astral energy would be even faster. As night descended, the heavenly mountain range was filled with moisture. Astral light flashed as several beams of astral light cascaded downwards, absorbed by the silhouette lying on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. The mountain range was so quiet that it was terrifying. When Qin Wenyan opened his eyes, he saw 2 silhouettes beside him. Other than Little Rascal, there was also a purgatory vermilion bird. Upon seeing Qin Wenyan opening his eyes, the purgatory vermilion bird let out a long screech as it soared into the air. Qin Wenyan inclined his head, only to see the purgatory vermilion bird circling above his head unceasingly, as though it was extremely excited. After a long time, it landed on his shoulder and flapped its gigantic wings, causing Qin Wenyan's body to waver unstably, causing him to smile bitterly. Little Rascal, well done. Qin Wenyan glanced at Little Rascal in front of him. Little Rascal leaped up and landed on his thighs, wagging its tail and raising its head. That complacent look on its face made it seem as though it was asking for credit. Bzz. But at this instant, a ferocious might erupted forth from the purgatory vermilion bird. It soared into the air, staring at the horizon as it let out a long screech. Qin Wenyan furrowed his brows as his perception gushed forth. After which, several silhouettes appeared in his perception. Lingering ghosts. A cold light flickered in Qin Wenyan's eyes. He didn't expect these people to be able to find him here. His silhouette flickered as he shot forth like an arrow, instantly appearing in the distance. Ahead of him, the 6 heavens chosen brought many experts with them as they inclined their heads and stared at him. Do you think you can survive? Shang-Chi coldly snorted. Their bodies split up as the sword intent radiating from Qin Wenyan churned unceasingly. But at this moment, a terrifying sealing energy suddenly erupted forth from a middle-aged man. In this vast space, a screen of light seemed to have appeared around him. Not good. Qin Wenyan abruptly turned his gaze onto the middle-aged man. That middle-aged man had actually concealed his aura, and under his perception, he was actually a 7th-level Heavenly Dipper Sovereign. Not only that, this sealing energy seemed to have isolated this entire space. Chapter 497. Qin Wenyan's countenance grew incredibly unsightly as he stared at the middle-aged man before him. He naturally knew that the middle-aged man had a treasure that could seal this entire space, and had intentionally prepared it for him. Qin Wenyan's silhouette flickered as he rapidly retreated. He could already sense the existence of that sealing energy. With a wave of his palms, a beam of sword light slashed out, causing spatial ripples to appear. The sword light seemed to have slashed onto a layer of light, unable to cause any damage to it at all. It's useless. Yin Ting coldly spoke. This was an extremely powerful treasure of their Yin clan. This time around, they had taken it out to deal with him. How could they allow him to escape? I've said it before, you won't be able to escape. Shang-Chi walked forward as he coldly spoke. The geniuses from the 6 transcendent powers were all present, not a single one was missing. They closed in step by step, staring at Qin Wenyin. In their eyes, Qin Wenyin could sense a clear killing intent. Evidently, all of them wanted Qin Wenyin to die. Qin Wenyin didn't expect that the other party would be able to find him. Not only that, they even prepared such a powerful treasure for him. In that case, it wasn't a coincidence that they were able to track him down. The purgatory vermilion bird let out a baleful roar as its body blazed with purgatory flames. Only now did those experts turn serious as they stared at the purgatory vermilion bird. Their hearts were filled with shock. The demonic beasts on this person's body were all extremely strange. That snowy dog could change its size at will, and at this moment, there was actually a purgatory vermilion bird that exuded a terrifying aura. Qin Wendian glanced at the purgatory vermilion bird. He could sense how powerful its aura was. His heart was filled with shock as well. Seems like after Little Rascal swallowed that crimson-eyed demonic beast, purgatory grew even stronger. Little Rascal was extremely intelligent. It naturally understood the situation Qin Wenyin was in right now. It opened its beak and spat out astral light into the air. Momentarily, the astral light drifted through the air, transforming into a nebula. Emichim? Upon seeing this scene, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed with coldness. Kill that little demon. Behind him, several people walked towards the direction of Little Rascal. Qin Wenyin retreated, blocking the way. Those people halted their steps. Fear could be seen in their eyes. The scene of Qin Wentian's slaughter was still vivid in their minds. They didn't dare to offend this fiend. You seem to have a lot of spare time. A 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign stepped out. However, the purgatory vermilion bird's silhouette flickered as it appeared in front of Qin Wenyin, blocking his path. The baleful light in its eyes caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. The 6 heavens chosen all moved in the direction of Qin Wenyin. This time around, all of them released their astral novas at the same time, their auras surging with power. They wouldn't give Qin Wenyin the slightest chance. In the battle yesterday, Xieyu was almost killed by Qin Wenyin. He couldn't be careless when fighting with this person. If you had handed it over yesterday, you might have been spared from death. But now, there's only one path in front of you. Feng Yunhe coldly spoke. Such a situation was truly hopeless. There was no blood pool here, and Qin Wendian naturally wouldn't be able to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. He only had one option left, and that was to transform into a great rock once more, using the body of a great rock to slaughter everyone here. The nebula in the air converged as a celestial phenomenon manifested. This scene caused a strange light to flash in Qin Wentian's eyes. Back then, Little Rascal had devoured the ancient formation of the vermilion bird. Now that the purgatory formation spirit had awakened, could it be that it would spit out the ancient formation and allow purgatory to control it? I have to buy some time for Little Rascal. Qin Wenyin mused in his heart. The power of his bloodline surged forth once more. Yesterday, he had yet to fully recover from the usage of his bloodline power. Now that he was burning his bloodline with all his might, Qin Wenyin suddenly felt as though he had surpassed the limits of his endurance. However, he had no other choice. He could only fight. The nebula in the air transformed into astral light that cascaded down onto the body of the purgatory vermilion bird, causing the flames on its body to grow even more terrifying. This scene caused the countenance of that expert to freeze as he spoke in a low voice. Kill that vile creature quickly. As the sound of his voice faded, he lunged towards the purgatory vermilion bird. With a swipe of his palm, a terrifying palm imprint of lightning manifested in the air, enveloping the gigantic body of the purgatory vermilion bird as the might of thunder and lightning within it erupted forth. Purgatory howled in rage as purgatory flames erupted from its body, rushing towards the gigantic palm imprint. In an instant, they collided with each other, causing a terrifying might to engulf this entire space. At the same time, the six chosen all launched their attacks towards Qin Wenyin. As for the others, they all focused on Little Rascal, launching their own sneak attacks. Qin Wenyan's astral nova erupted forth as his demonic blood boiled. His demonic armor covered his body, giving him the appearance of a demon king. Whoever dares to step forward, die. Qin Wenyan roared. Stomping on the ground, sword Qi howled as it slashed down. Why wouldn't I dare? Jian Jingtian roared as his sword Qi shook the heavens. Similarly, he unleashed his astral nova, slamming out with his palms as rows of sharp swords whistled through the air. At the same time, the heaven-shocking sword slashed out, shaking mountains and rivers as it slashed towards Qin Wenyin. Boom! Qin Wenyin continuously stepped forward as the might of the seven slaughters sword soared to the extreme. Do it! Shang-Chi coldly commanded. Momentarily, the other experts all rushed towards Little Rascal. Qin Wenyin stomped on the ground again as his sword Qi soared to a terrifying degree. His silhouette directly vanished, reappearing in the middle of the group of experts as he took his fifth step. Boundless sword intent swept out in all directions as his astral nova slashed out. Instantly, fresh blood splattered as the others all retreated in all directions. Boom! The heartbreak ancient bell caused the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. At the same time, Qin Wenyan took his sixth step, causing all the experts present to feel as though they were completely suppressed by the sword. Light sounds of splattering rang out as one of them directly transformed into a rain of blood. At the same time, muffled groans rang out unceasingly as one expert after another collapsed. On the other side, Shang-Chi and the others all rushed towards Little Rascal. Feng Yunhe's speed was the fastest. His sharp claws directly smashed downwards, yet Little Rascal continued spitting out astral light as its body turned golden. Bang! The sharp claws slammed into its body. Little Rascal tumbled a few times before crawling back to its feet and continued to spit out astral energy. The astral energy permeated the air, enveloping Purgatory's body. This Little Rascal can really endure. Xie Yu coldly spoke. His 9 arms transformed into towering fist might that blasted into Little Rascal's body. Rumbling sounds rang out as a terrifying might gushed into Little Rascal's body. Little Rascal's body flickered, yet it was still struck by the boundless fist light and was flung through the air, coughing out a mouthful of fresh blood. Its eyes were filled with baleful intent. It inclined its head and continued to spit out astral light. It was as though it was the same as Qin Wenyin, possessing an intense obsession. Qin Wenyan's killing intent soared to the extreme when he saw this scene. Stepping out, this was already his 7th step. The astral nova in his hands danced about, as though he was infused with boundless rage. Those who were still alive in the surroundings were all pierced through by the sword Qi, their throats lacerated by the sound of the sword as they died. However, these heaven-chosen didn't feel any pain in their hearts at all. It was as though these people weren't their subordinates. The threat of the 7 annihilation swordplay was too great. Right now, he had already unleashed it once. He couldn't unleash the 7th strike of the 7 annihilation swordplay a second time. Are you going to die or not? Xie Yu wasn't willing to spare Little Rascal. Once again, he blasted out a towering fist light towards Little Rascal. Each of his punches contained the might of the earth, as well as the sharpness of metal. How could Qin Wenyin endure this? After killing the people here, he immediately activated stellar transposition and appeared beside Xie Yu. The center of his brows glowed with a bright light as it shot into Xie Yu's sea of consciousness. His astral nova directly flew out, aiming for Xie Yu's head. However, at this moment, Shang-Chi's silhouette appeared in front of him. A blood-colored palm imprint with a hint of golden light blasted out, as the power of his regenerative bloodlines surged forth, slamming into Little Rascal's astral nova. Little Rascal was sent tumbling through the air from the impact of Xieyu's fist. At this moment, the silhouettes of several experts appeared outside the space. These people all exuded extraordinary auras, and none of them had appeared before this. They had been maintaining a distance from the group of people in front of them, so as to not alarm Qin Wenyan and allow him to escape using a scroll. Only now did they catch up. Bzz. A spatial fluctuation gushed out as the sealing energy in this space was broken apart. The silhouettes of those experts flickered as they directly rushed over. Just when Qin Wenyan realized what was happening, the sealing energy appeared once more, sealing this space. Taking advantage of the time when he couldn't activate the spatial scroll, the other party allowed the other experts to enter. Qin Wenyan swept his gaze over the cultivation bases of these experts as his countenance turned pale. This was a hopeless situation. The weakest among these people was at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. There was basically no hope at all. Demonic chi gushed forth from his body as his ancient will reached the heavens. Only the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation could resolve this crisis. However, at the next instant, Qin Wenyan's countenance turned deathly pale. The demonic divinity sacrificial transformation was unable to be activated. The sealing energy in this space wasn't just pure spatial energy. It was a spatial seal that sealed all connections with the outside world. The sealing energy within the treasure made it so that he had no way to form an innate connection with the constellations and borrow the power of the demonic divinities from the 8 directions. Knowing that it was impossible, Qin Wenyan instantly gave up. His silhouette flickered as he appeared before Little Rascal. Those heavens chosen weren't in a hurry to act. Their gazes were filled with mockery as they stared at Qin Wenyan. As for those experts who came over, they all stood in different directions. Qin Wenyan was already in a hopeless situation. Little Rascal, if I die here, bring purgatory back to Grand Xia. Qin Wenyan spoke in a low voice. If he used the immortal vanquishing swordplay in such a state, he would die without a doubt. But now he had no other choice. Roar! Little Rascal let out a low-sounding roar as it shook its head frenziedly. It was still frenziedly spitting out astral energy. If you die, do you still want them to leave? These 2 demonic beasts are actually not bad mounts. There's even a vermilion bird among them. Shang-Chi's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Could it be that Qin Wenyan still wanted to protect this demonic beast? Wasn't this a little too ridiculous? Settle this vermilion bird first, its aura is growing stronger. At this moment, the expert who was fighting against the vermilion bird spoke. A moment later, several experts dashed towards the vermilion bird. The body of the vermilion bird burned with a terrifying intensity, as though it wanted to burn everything away. With a sharp screech, it abruptly turned and spat out purgatory flames in the direction of Shang-Chi and the others. Careful! The others all shouted. Shang-Chi and the others hurriedly retreated while the vermilion bird lunged towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan, whose sword chi was still permeating the air, directly fell to the ground. Qin Wenyan initially wanted to unleash the immortal vanquishing swordplay, yet he was interrupted by Purgatory. Purgatory didn't allow him to unleash this attack. Purgatory! Qin Wenyan roared in rage. However, he only saw the Purgatory vermilion bird's wings wrapping around his body. The baleful eyes of the Purgatory vermilion bird flickered with a hint of gentleness. It was born because of Qin Wenyan. How could it witness Qin Wenyan's death the moment it appeared in this world? It, Purgatory, wouldn't agree to this. Chapter 498. As to why Qin Wenyan dared to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay despite the consequences, it was because he cultivated the great nirvana immortal art and had another body in the royal tomb of Grand Xia. The comprehension of that body was equivalent to Qin Wenyan's own body comprehending the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Hence, even if one of his bodies perished, he wouldn't die. Naturally, Qin Wenyan regarded his true body with extreme importance. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, how would he want to perish? But now that he was surrounded by the experts from the various major powers, He was already in a hopeless situation. Either he died together or he died to protect little rascal and purgatory. Under such circumstances, he naturally would rather choose to die himself. But even if he was willing to sacrifice himself, purgatory wouldn't agree. To purgatory, Qin Wenyin was its everything. Hence, after knowing what Qin Wenyin wanted to do, purgatory directly pressed him and little rascal beneath it. After which, it spread out its wings, protecting the two of them. Its eyes gleamed with a ferocious light as it stared at everyone. "Purgatory, let me out." Qin Wenyin roared, but purgatory didn't seem to hear it. It tightly protected Qin Wenyin under its body, its powerful might causing Qin Wenyin to have no way to break free. "What a loyal demonic beast. Why don't you follow me?" An expert walked over, staring at purgatory. Purgatory opened its mouth and spat out a purgatory lotus, frenziedly flying over. That expert snorted coldly and stretched out his palm, causing the space around him to freeze, colliding with the purgatory lotus. After which, both attacks shattered. The other experts all walked over, staring coldly at the purgatory vermilion bird. In such a desperate situation, you still want to protect your master? As a vermilion bird, you are one of the 8 demonic gods. Leave with me, I won't mistreat you. Another expert walked over, wanting to subdue purgatory, yet what welcomed him was still a towering purgatory flame. You don't know what's good for you. That expert snorted coldly as he launched an attack. Since I can't tame this demon, I'll just kill it. Its flames are useful to me. One of the experts from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan coldly spoke. After which, he abruptly pointed a finger towards purgatory. At the same time, the ice elemental expert stepped forth and slammed out with a palm imprint, freezing everything in its path as it slammed into purgatory. Purgatory's body shuddered violently, but she remained motionless. This evil creature is really persistent. I really want to tame it. Unfortunately, it's so foolishly loyal. Another attack landed, each with a force of 1,000,000 Jin, causing Purgatory's body to tremble violently as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Even Qin Wenyin, who was standing on the ground, could feel the strength of the shockwave. However, it was completely absorbed by Purgatory, and only a trace of the shockwave was transmitted to his body. Purgatory! Qin Wenyan's eyes were scarlet red as he howled in rage. However, Purgatory didn't seem to hear him at all. It only had a single thought in its mind. Qin Wenyan must not die. As long as it was around, Qin Wenyan would be around as well. Although Little Rascal was being protected by Purgatory, it was still frenziedly spitting out astral energy. Its eyes were scarlet red, gleaming with an ominous light. Boom! A bolt of lightning smashed down, scorching the earth. Purgatory coughed out blood as cracks could be seen on its body. Fool, as expected of a vile creature. To think that you still refuse to step aside. A mocking voice rang out. After which, another powerful attack slammed down. Purgatory silently endured it, but the injuries on its body grew heavier and heavier. Scram! Qin Wenyin used his immense strength, wanting to force Purgatory's body apart. However, he discovered that Purgatory's defense was extremely firm, not budging an inch. The spectators outside stared at the gigantic body of Purgatory. The number of injuries on its body increased, yet it still coiled there, protecting Qin Wenyin. It was as though it was telling the spectators that if they wanted to kill Qin Wenyin, they had to step over its corpse first. Roar! Qin Wenyan's roars rang out as a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth frenziedly. The blood in Qin Wenyan's body seemed to be going berserk as a fearsome demonic energy gushed forth. It was as though his will of the mandate of demons had grown even stronger, as though it had stepped into the transformation boundary of the second level. However, at this moment, Qin Wenyin didn't feel any excitement at all. He only wanted to push Purgatory away. But even if his strength increased explosively, it was useless. Purgatory wouldn't leave even if it died. The spectators outside stood there, not continuing their attacks. Right now, they were all stunned by Purgatory's loyalty. Under such a barrage of attacks, if it was an ordinary demonic beast, it would have died countless times already. However, the purgatory vermilion bird continued to protect Qin Wenyin. This was its conviction. Qin Wenyin was even more important than its own life. Staring at the weakening aura of the purgatory vermilion bird, the countenances of the spectators grew incredibly unsightly. This demonic beast's defense is truly strong. Even that little bastard is the same, we can't kill it no matter what. In fact, they even felt somewhat jealous of Qin Wenyin for having two demonic beasts as his companions. Strong and loyal. Continue attacking. Since it cannot be tamed, we can only kill it. A cold voice rang out. The spectators were all extremely depressed. They actually couldn't even kill a single demonic beast. Yes. An expert nodded. After that, he stepped forth, appearing before Purgatory. He lifted his palm as a terrifying energy gushed forth. His fingers seemed to be imbued with a golden sword that could penetrate through everything. Pressing down with a single finger, he shot towards Purgatory. But right at this moment, the weak and silent Purgatory suddenly erupted with a terrifying might. Buzz! The huge body of the Purgatory vermilion bird moved. In an instant, it spat out a Purgatory fire lotus, directly engulfing that expert. Arg. The blink of an eye, the expert's body was burned to ashes. Below Purgatory, a shocking scene appeared. It was unknown how much astral light little rascal had spat out, but Purgatory had been continuously swallowing it, accumulating energy. It didn't use any energy to resist, it was accumulating energy to attack, not wanting to waste the slightest bit of energy. These astral lights floated in the air, cascading onto Purgatory's body. Other than this, Qin Wenyan's wrist had already been sliced open. His fingers pierced into Purgatory's body as fresh blood flowed from his wrist, seeping into Purgatory's body. Earlier, he was feeding Purgatory the power of his bloodline. Qin Wenyan's eyes gleamed with coldness, piercing into the eyes of those who looked at him. Such coldness could freeze the bodies of those who looked at him. Just a single glance from him was sufficient to cause despair in their hearts. Purgatory let out a long howl as it frenziedly spat out more hellfire, sweeping through the entire space. Yet another person was incinerated, his body completely unextinguished. Go! With a loud shout, everyone hurriedly retreated. However, they only saw Purgatory rushing out, its hellfire sweeping through everything. Qin Wenyan followed behind it, his blood still flowing into Purgatory's body. Purgatory unleashed its ferocious might. The experts from the various powers hurriedly brought their own geniuses and retreated. Release the seal. A loud shout rang out. The experts from the Yin clan released the seal, allowing the Purgatory vermilion bird to continue rushing forward. Leave quickly. The expressions of those experts turned extremely ugly to behold as they hurriedly fled. They didn't expect that the Purgatory vermilion bird would suddenly become so violent. The Purgatory vermilion bird didn't chase after them. Its aura was rapidly weakening, but it still floated in the air, staring at the fleeing experts. Qin Wenyan stood below Purgatory, the blood in his body seethed madly. Not long ago, when he was in a frenzied state, he could faintly sense that there was another kind of terrifying power within his demonic bloodline. It was just that he hadn't activated it yet, hence, he decided to channel the power of his bloodline into Purgatory's body. However, in order to protect Qin Wenyan, Purgatory didn't use any of its energy to attack. It didn't care about its life at all, only focusing on accumulating energy. This was why after Qin Wenyan channeled the power of his bloodline into its body, in addition to the combined efforts of it and Little Rascal, it was able to ignite its own energy and unleash such a terrifying combat prowess. However, Qin Wenyan understood that this was merely a flash in the pan. Purgatory had almost exhausted all of its energy. Pooh! Purgatory's body fell downwards. Its entire body was incomparably weak. It no longer had any strength left. Qin Wenyan hugged its body as that gigantic body pressed down on him. Purgatory's eyes were still open as it stared at Qin Wenyan with a gentle smile on its face. It had done it had protected Qin Wenyan from death. In that case, everything it had done was worth it. Staring at the smile in Purgatory's eyes, Qin Wenyan felt pain in his heart. Purgatory was a demonic spirit. Protecting him was its strongest obsession. If he was born, it would be born. If it wanted him to die, it would die first. This was the love of demonic spirits. How many people in the mortal world could compare to it? Because it was born because of him. In that case, it would also die because of him. Little rascal flew over. Its eyes were red as well, filled with tears. It was sentient and similarly contained intense emotions. It had always depended on Qin Wendian for survival. After that, it devoured Purgatory and gained emotions. But Qin Wendian was their only protector. Purgatory was the same as it was willing to give up its life to protect him. Qin Wendian stared at the two demonic beasts, feeling warmth in his heart. But when he thought of what happened earlier, his heart ached again. In this life, I won't let you down. Qin Wendian stared at the two demonic beasts. His eyes were moist, but a warm smile could be seen on his face. He then spoke to Purgatory. My bloodline is able to give birth to demons. Purgatory, enter my bloodline first. As he spoke, his hands landed on Purgatory's body. In an instant, Purgatory's body was directly absorbed into his bloodline. Purgatory's body entered his bloodline, circulating within his body. Little rascal's eyes brightened, its heart was similarly moved. In this life, I won't let you down. Yeah. A light sound rang out as little rascal soared up into the air. A pair of wings appeared on its back as it floated in the air. It lowered its head and stared at the horizon as it called out, Qin Wenyan. This voice was extremely childish and unclear, but Qin Wenyan's eyes gleamed with a resplendent light. He inclined his head and stared at the silhouette in the air as the smile in his eyes grew even more intense. This was the first time little rascal spoke. Qin Wendian. His eyes slowly turned over, staring in the direction of Xianqing City. The smile on his face vanished, replaced by a cold light. This hatred shall be repaid with blood. Chapter 499. Atop the desolate mountain, the white-robed young man's robes were dyed red with blood. His eyes gleamed with a cold light, causing the temperature of the entire space to drop drastically. Xianqing City, all the geniuses were waiting. With a flicker of his silhouette, Qin Wenyan carried little rascal in his arms as he sped away like the wind. Evidently, he couldn't stay here any longer. Now that Purgatory had been absorbed into his bloodline, it would be able to recuperate within his bloodline. Qin Wenyan also didn't know why his ancient demonic bloodline would suddenly have a different kind of ability. He could only speculate that this might have something to do with the immortal vanquishing swordplay he had absorbed earlier. The blood in the pool was incinerated by the immortal vanquishing swordplay, and some of it was absorbed by his bloodline, stimulating his demonic bloodline, causing it to become even more violent. This was also the reason why he was able to step into the transformation realm of the second level of demons so quickly. Lowering his head, he stared at the injured little rascal in his arms only to see little rascal tilting its head upwards as it spoke in a baby voice. Little rascal. Yes, little rascal. When Qin Wendian heard this voice, the dark clouds in his heart seemed to have dispersed. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he gently stroked little rascal's head. Little rascal's lips twitched as it shook its head. This was the first time it used its human voice to express its dissatisfaction towards the name Qin Wenyan gave it. I've already gotten used to it after so long. Qin Wendian lightly flicked little rascal's head. Momentarily, little rascal furrowed its brows as a look of grievance flashed in its eyes. After learning how to speak, little rascal was becoming more and more human-like. The silhouettes of a man and a demonic beast gradually faded away, leaving this desolate mountain range as they headed towards the depths of the heavenly mountain range. In the Xianqing City, there were many rumors circulating around. It was rumored that during the heavenly mountain treasure seizing assembly, a young man in white appeared. This young man claimed that his surname was Qin and that he snatched away Shang Yu's spatial brush, humiliated Yin Qing and Jin Zhan, and was incomparably arrogant. After that, he inscribed divine inscriptions and killed Grandmaster Chiu. Not only so, it was rumored that a mysterious realm had appeared. In this mysterious realm, the geniuses of the various major powers led their experts to explore it and discovered that the mysterious realm was actually the burial ground of a legendary expert. The celestial constellation fruit trees were born there and the various major powers fought over it. However, this young man surnamed Qin suddenly appeared out of nowhere and fought against all the experts, killing more than half of them. He even fought against the combined forces of 6 geniuses, and after that, he managed to escape unscathed with half of the celestial constellation fruits. What was even more shocking was that this young man's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. For him, the Heavenly Rock Aristocrat clan brought out the 10,000 miles tracking mirror, the Een clan brought out a sealing treasure, and the experts from the Heavenly Rock Aristocrat clan once again tried to find the young man in white. However, all of them returned in low spirits with heavy casualties. There were even 2 experts at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper who died. As for what exactly happened in that battle, nobody knew. But that young man in white who had never appeared before in the Shen King city was rumored to have 3 heads and 6 arms. As for the young man in white right now, he was still bitterly cultivating in the Heavenly Mountain Range. In the depths of the Heavenly Mountain Range, there was a wondrous scene. Qin Wenyan sat on the peak of a mountain as he stared ahead. Over there, snowflakes drifted about, and the endless mountain range was completely covered in ice and snow, exuding an extremely cold intent. This piece of land seemed to be separated into 2 parts. One part was covered in ice and snow, while the other was covered in ice and snow. There wasn't a single snowflake at all on Qin Wentian's side. Qin Wentian sat there cross-legged, holding 2 constellation fruits in his hands. One was a dark red fruit that could cause one's heart to throb, while the other was a fruit that contained the will of the mandate of Great Earth within it. He didn't directly swallow it. This fruit contained an intense mandate of Great Earth, allowing one to sense it unceasingly. If he directly swallowed it, there might be a miraculous effect, but after that, there would be nothing left. It was best to swallow it at the most crucial moment. Qin Wenyan quietly held the constellation fruits in his hands. His heartbeat was extremely fast, yet there was a certain rhythm to it. With every heartbeat, every meridian in his body seemed to be pulsating along with it. And that great earth fruit could even allow him to sense the pulsation of the earth. It was as though the earth itself was beating just like his heartbeat. Qin Wenyan entered a state of selflessness, fully immersing himself in sensing the pulsation of the earth, forgetting his own heartbeat as he entered an ethereal state. Following the pulsation of the earth, his perception unceasingly extended outwards. Gradually, the rate of his heartbeat slowed down. Gradually, it stabilized, no longer beating as intensely as before. It was as though his heartbeat had entered the same rhythm as the pulsation of the earth. This feeling was as though he was a part of the earth. His body had fused together with the earth. As his cultivation base grew stronger, Qin Wenyan could even comprehend the mandate of Great Earth. But because he didn't have an astral soul of the mandate of Great Earth, there was no way for him to condense an astral nova. Even if he could comprehend it, the effect would be weaker compared to his own mandate of Great Earth. Not only that, he would require more time to cultivate. After all, right now, he was only able to enter this state because of the constellation fruits. After a long period of time, Qin Wentian's heartbeat was so calm that it almost stopped. Boo! Exhaling, he opened his eyes and stretched lazily, feeling extremely comfortable. The feeling of entering this state every day was simply too wonderful. It was as though the earth itself was his muscles, bones, blood, and flesh, pulsating along with his heartbeat. It's about time for my mandate of force to break through. Qin Wentian stood up and walked towards the mountain rampart. His perception extended outwards as he punched out with his fist. That seemingly calm punch slammed into the mountain rampart, causing a terrifying shockwave to rapidly extend outwards. The pulsation of the entire mountain rampart grew even more intense, and after which, cracking sounds rang out as cracks appeared, resembling spiderwebs. Shatter! Qin Wentian's palms trembled as he lightly spoke. An instant later, a thunderous boom rang out as the mountain rampart in front of him was reduced to dust. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he spoke in a low voice. Indeed, the mandate of force and the mandate of Great Earth have some similarities. The second-level mandate of force I've comprehended is the void shockwave. Isn't that a type of pulsation as well? The pulsations of the mandate of force would be able to spread outwards, destroying everything in its path. Right now, my second-level mandate of force has also broken through to the transformation boundary. Right now, of the 4 types of mandates, the mandate of force, the mandate of demons, and the mandate of swords had all broken through to the transformation boundary of the second level. As for the mandate of dreams, Di Tian was currently cultivating the great dream immortal art in the royal tomb. He could faintly sense that his mandate of dreams was also on the verge of breaking through. Most probably, it wouldn't be long before all 4 of his mandates would break through to the transformation boundary of the second level. A bright light flashed as the scarlet demon halberd appeared in Qin Wentian's hands. His silhouette flickered as he stepped into the vast expanse of snow. Snow and ice drifted down from the skies as Qin Wentian pierced out with his halberd, seeking to find the strongest power in each of his halberd strikes. When he first stepped onto the path of cultivation, Qin Wentian already knew the tempered thousand hammer refinement art. Any type of innate technique could be transformed into a qualitative one through quantitative changes. Right now, he had many methods at his disposal, yet it was extremely difficult for him to fuse them all into one, achieving a perfect fusion point. For example, the halberd arts he had created in the past weren't suitable for the current him, they were too weak. However, what if he were to fuse his comprehensions and mandates into his halberd arts? He would definitely be able to unleash 10 to 100 times more power. But how could such a fusion be achieved so easily? This was a process of creation. He needed to continuously temper his halberd arts before he knew if there was a possibility of success. The boundless snowflakes brought with them a bone-piercing chill, yet it was as though the white-robed young man couldn't sense it at all. From start to end, he was clad in a thin white robe, as though he wanted to fuse as one with the snowflakes. Only the halberd arts he executed seemed to be perfecting themselves. A day passed. 7 days passed. In the blink of an eye, 9 days passed. The white-robed young man was still the same as before. He had already lost count of how many halberd strikes he had executed, but right now he could already unleash his halberd strikes soundlessly. It wasn't that there was no sound, it was just that the speed of his attacks was simply too fast. The silhouette of the white-robed young man flickered as he stared at the snowy mountain in front of him. Stepping out, his halberd slashed out like a dragon, causing the surrounding snowflakes to freeze. As the halberd landed, there was still no sound. However, the snowy mountain started to crumble inch by inch as the power of his halberd seeped into it. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out as the entire snowy mountain collapsed. As for the area where the halberd landed, everything was turned into dust. Still not strong enough. My strongest void formation ripples destroyed the pulsation of the entire mountain in a single strike. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows, as though he was still unsatisfied. After which he brandished his scarlet demon halberd again and again. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days passed. Snowflakes continued to fall. On the snowy ground, little rascal was sprawled on the ground, as though he was one with the snow. Behind them, atop a snowy mountain, a figure as beautiful as a snow lotus had unknowingly appeared there, quietly observing the white-robed young man as he practiced his halberd strikes. Several hours later, the white-robed young man stopped once again. In his eyes, a hint of a smile could be seen. My mandate of dreams has reached the transformation boundary of the second level. Qin Wentian smiled. Right now, all 4 of his mandates had stepped into the transformation boundary of the second level. If he encountered the 6 chosen again, Qin Wentian would definitely be able to kill them all. Even if the 6 of them ganged up on him, it would be the same. One must know that a few days ago, when he fought against the 6 chosen, his greatest reliance was his sword. The 7 annihilation swordplay, His mandate of swords was only at the transformation boundary. Now, he had 4 different mandates. As though he had sensed something, Qin Wenyan turned and saw the silhouette atop the snowy mountain. His eyes that were as bright as the stars in the night sky involuntarily brightened. Qin Wenyan's silhouette flickered as he appeared on the snowy mountain. That cold silhouette stared at him, her eyes gleaming with intelligence, yet she still didn't like to speak. These 2 constellation fruits are the mandate of space, they should be useful to you. Qin Wenyan passed the fruits over to Qing. Qing glanced at them, but she didn't stretch her hands out. Qing take them. Qin Wenyan commanded. Oh. Qing replied in a crisp voice as she stretched her hands out to receive the constellation fruits. However, the expression on her face was still the same. It was unknown what she was thinking in her heart. I'm leaving. Qin Wenyan turned, his silhouette flickered as he stepped into the vast expanse of ice and snow once again. Staring at his back, the lines on Qing's face twitched as a smile appeared on her face. This smile of hers seemed to be able to melt all the ice and snow in this world. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.